Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon Howse.
And good evening. Welcome to the broadcast on this June 4th, 2025. Joining me tonight is going to be Annie Cyrus. We're going to talk about Iran. Is Iran playing the old rope-a-dope game again? Drawing out time? They've done this with so many administrations. Here's the question. Does Iran have America over a barrel? Are they blackmailing America? Meaning, do they have so many terror cells here in the U.S., maybe even nuclear weapons, biological weapons, that they're using that as blackmail to really have anything tough happen to them? Because a lot of people thought President Trump was going to come in and wham, bam, take care of things. And this problem just keeps dragging on. And we're even hearing tonight the U.S. proposes interim step in Iran nuclear talks, allowing some uranium enrichment. What? Wait a minute. Why? I'm just asking questions. Could Iran have us over a barrel? You guys know for several years, 2, 3 more years, I've been saying, what are the odds that these countries are able to blackmail America because the borders have been open and porous for so long. They have so many terror cells here, maybe also nuclear weapons, biological weapons, that they can actually use that as blackmail. Get what they want. I'm just asking questions. I want to ask Annie about it. Let's also talk about Pakistan and India. Let's talk about the Islamists. A lot of the Islamists in Great Britain that are now marrying their first cousins. What? Pretty popular. I think over 50% at one point is Islamist, a lot of them from Pakistan, marrying their first cousins. Yeah, well, that might create a problem in a lot of ways. Not to mention, if this goes on for generations, probably have a group of people that don't really have a lot of common sense or are easily manipulated because they're, not the brightest bulb. Got a lot to talk with Annie about tonight. Karen Kingston, I taped an interview with Karen yesterday about the FDA going rogue, about several other issues related to a coronavirus, a possible Nipah virus, so many issues we'll get to with Karen Kingston. And then I'm going to talk with Dr. Lana about iron. How much iron do you need in your system? How do you test to see if you have enough iron? And if you don't have enough iron in your system, is your heart fluttering? Do you get cold? Are you losing your hair? What are the consequences of not having enough iron in your system? And how do you get iron naturally into your body? Let's talk about that. Rob Lindstedt is going to join us from Israel. Dr. Rob's in Israel leading a tour. We're going to talk about what are the Israelis saying. He's been there now a few days, long enough to talk to enough Israelis, find out what are they saying about Donald Trump, America, our leadership on the world stage, the Abraham Peace Accords, President Trump's trips to Saudi Arabia, his shaking hands with the jihadi president of Syria. What are they saying about America and Trump? What are Israelis saying about Benjamin Netanyahu? Here's the question. Are people around the world losing trust in their own leaders? And is that setting the stage for a man to walk onto the stage? A world leader, the Antichrist. Particularly when he performs counterfeit miracle signs and wonders, and the world's like, all right, that's the guy we need. Is that what's being set up? How about this? Did you know that Job chapter 38, verse 22 talks about God having a storehouse of snow and hail? Go look it up. Job chapter 38, verse 22 and 23. God has a storehouse for the day of judgment of snow and hailstones. That's interesting because you know what? The book of Revelation, between your seal judgments, your trumpet judgments, your bowl judgments, lots of hail. Is that where that's coming from in part? What other things could be setting the stage for the events of Revelation? More and more scientists are talking about all the asteroids and meteorites headed our direction. Some of them could wipe out 3 or 4 American cities. The Bible talks about these things, that these hailstorms, these asteroids, these meteorites are falling. Is it possible that God's already put some of those on a trajectory and a course maybe years ago? God knows the timing of all these things. He's God. Maybe he set some of these things on the course 2,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago. What about all the earthquakes we're reading about all over the world? You guys been keeping up with that? All the earthquakes? Are the tectonic plates shifting? Is this setting the stage for all the earthquakes that are going to occur during the tribulation period? Revelation chapter 16, particularly the bowl judgments, talks about an earthquake like the world has never seen. Scientists are now looking at fault lines in America that they really haven't paid a lot of attention to. Now they are. Is the stage being set in a natural way in nature for the coming events? So we got a setup economically, a setup militarily, a setup globally, and then the nature itself seems to be setting up for what's described in the book of Revelation. We'll get to that. Let's talk to Dr. Rob Lindstedt about that. And then finally, my friends, Chad and Katie, they have a solution for families that maybe are struggling with alcohol addiction, prescription drug addiction. Maybe someone has had a surgery and got addicted to opioids. You'll hear Chad's testimony, who was a businessman who was addicted to alcohol. And his wife, after quite some time of that, finally found somewhere to take him to give him treatment beyond people just talking at you. He needed something to deal with the connections in the brain and how your brain starts having this chemical or this desire for this chemical or this drug, this alcohol or pills. How do you connect the brain? What kind of brain restorative formula, all natural, could you take? Well, he did. He went and sat and took an IV in the arm for several days, and it began to take away his cravings. You could talk at him all day long, but there's something physiological going on in the brain. And you need to repair that brain. So they'll tell their story. They've been with us before, but it's been a while. They're going to come back because a lot of families are suffering in silence and they need help. They need someone to reach out to and to ask questions and consider if maybe this is the answer. It worked for Chad and Katie. And so Chad used his gifts as a businessman to start a clinic. And they're strong Christians. They've been with us many times. They've been in our studio. They've exhibited at our Worldview weekends. So you're going to want to hear from them tonight. All right, let's get to it. Now, before we do, remember, as always, we're brought to you by you. Please consider going to worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Get your Starlink. 500 gigabytes. That's high speed. You get it free. That's a savings of like $625 when you sign up for their very reasonable monthly plan, just a 12-month plan, $165 a month for 12 months, and you're getting a $600 piece of equipment for free. They also have one that's portable. For those of you that have RVs or a cabin, and you don't want to hook in internet up there, you can get your Starlink. You can take it with you. We have one of the portable Starlinks. Call them, 1-866-738-3224, or just use worldviewtalk.com, 1-866-738-3224. They have the beanies that protect your head from the electromagnetic forces. They have the solar generators. They have the satellite phones. They have the bulletproof backpacks, worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com. Don't forget about worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you have your emergency plans, your emergency kits, your ivermectin, your amoxicillin, all of that on hand. Should there be a problem with just-in-time inventory? Should there be a problem with getting critical meds that you will need if you have a serious issue that needs an antibiotic. You don't want to be like, I can't get that. We're in big trouble. You want to have this stuff on hand now, just like I do. We have these, okay? WorldviewHealthcare.com, WorldviewHealthcare.com. Check out their plans where you can get free prescriptions, or free prescriptions plus free supplements. All of that at WorldviewHealthcare.com. And of course, the water filter, this is what I drink every day, the water that filters out all these chemicals and garbage. And this is the water we make our coffee with. This is the water Melissa cooks with. This is the water I give my beloved Dolly and all my other 2 fur babies. Okay, worldviewwater.net, worldviewwater.net. Drink good water, worldviewwater.net. And of course, you know, I take my Gatatana every day. That's at melissahousegpa.com. 1 scoop, 90 billion plant cells, the equivalent thereof. Lots of protein, amino acids, trace minerals, things that are great for our pets as well. Dolly gets a half a scoop on her food every day. Get a subscription to this so it shows up every month. You don't run out. I do this drink every day. melissahousegpa.com. You know I do my Numi every day. Okay, I do this every day. This detoxes my cells. This has got glutathione in it. 165,000 studies on glutathione. Some studies show may remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia. And you know I do Bella Grace. That's the 3 things I do every day. Bella Grace, melissahousebg.com, melissahousebg.com. 81 clinical trials on this elixir that I take every day. Every day. Here it is right here. Every day. Skincare, Melissa loves it. The weight management, all natural. And of course, the sleep supplement as well. melissahousebg.com. Support your health and us at the same time by using these products we use. Thank you for that. Joining me now is Annie Cyrus by phone. Annie has a brand new article out, The Prophet's Foot Soldiers, How the Muslim Brotherhood Weaponizes America's Youth. She has another one, America's Jihad Martyr Cult, From Campus to Hollywood, the West Now Glorifies Death for Allah. The New York Post has a new article out tonight as well, Annie, about some of these students. Some of these students are being tied right back to Hamas and Muslim Brotherhood. Wow, the New York Post is doing a few great articles recently, but most Americans, again, are still completely unaware how much terror cells have infiltrated America, but infiltrated our college campuses. Now, we haven't had you on since the Boulder, Colorado incident, where a man, again, is sworn basically that jihad is more important to him than his wife or mother. We'll play that video later. So bring us up to speed on your thoughts on all these things, please, Annie.
You're right. It feels like, you're on air 6 days a week. I'm writing 6 days a week. Many other of our site are telling the truth every day, but it seems like people still don't get it. That this isn't about a bunch of lone wolf. This isn't about a bunch of mental illness, suffering, provoked people. This is a movement. This is a cause. On both articles that you mentioned, both Substacks, I mentioned that this is what they call dying in name of Allah and for cause of Allah. There is such a thing out there that they believe that the only way their sins are forgiven. For us Christians, we need to, by heart, believe that Jesus is our Lord and Savior. For them, it's to die in name of Allah, killing non-believers. It's a real thing, and I put so many verses on both Substack to prove this. Another Substack coming tomorrow, I just broke down the entire concept of jihad, not even my own words, Brannon. I used Quran, Hadith, and Reliance of the Traveler. But it just doesn't seem like people get it. It's still sheriff departments and police chiefs are looking for motive. What is there to look for? How many more Muslim men screaming Allahu Akbar or Free Palestine, which nowadays means the same thing, are going to kill Jews or Christians until police and sheriff departments and DOJ are going to know what this is about.
I like your graphic. I don't like it, but I like that you used it on your Substack. Free Palestine plus burn Jews equals motive unknown. The police are silenced while they're doing Molotov cocktails onto Jews. Someone said once they were burning Israeli and American flags, now they're burning Americans and Jews, actually in America.
Exactly.
One of these 88-year-old victims there in Boulder is a Holocaust survivor. Here's the article from the New York Post. Columbia protester and self-proclaimed Jew hater had direct links to Hamas's terror cells, disturbing phone records reveal. That's according to the DOJ. I've been telling my audience, of course, for a long time, and more so even the last few weeks, I just sense something bigger or as big as 9/11 or like an October 7th events coming to America. With all of these trends and these attacks going and growing, what are your spidey senses saying?
Brannon, I'll take this back to it all depends. It does depend on how the current administration deals with the issue. I know I will give credit to Kash Patel for calling it a terrorist attack, but that's not enough. If we don't treat these attacks the way they should be treated, they're going to grow and they're going to grow. And yes, I strongly believe on the one that I talked about, the infiltration, the Prophet's foot soldiers. I do bring evidence that Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, IRGC, all these groups are funding. There's young soldiers here in America from TikTok to YouTube to Facebook to universities, even some in schools. They are being funded by internal American Islamic organizations that I have named on the Substack, who are getting their funding from Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas and IRGC and all of them. They are training our kids to start burning down buildings and maybe even universities. I don't know.
So they're training them. They're training them for terrorist attacks here in the U.S. Is that what I just heard you say?
Yes. Now they're not exactly telling them we're training you to be a jihadist. They're training them to believe in Allah's cause equals jihad. Mm-hmm. That's how they're training them.
Do you think the Trump administration is scared of Iran and these terror cells? Because in the Jerusalem Post tonight, here we have the headline, U.S. proposes interim step in Iran nuclear talks, allowing some uranium enrichment, New York Times reports. The Iranians, talk about art of the deal. How many presidential administrations have they snookered, talked into giving them more and more and more time? And now they're getting more time. And the U.S. is saying, well, maybe you can do an interim step where you get a little uranium enrichment. These guys are the ones making the deals. I mean, they're the ones that seem to know the art of the deals. Iran, am I wrong?
No, you're 100% right. And I called it from day one when quote-unquote negotiations started. When I came out and said, President Trump, you're dancing with the devil, everybody's like, you don't understand his mindset. He's the master of making all deals. I said, no, you don't understand the other end. I understand Trump completely. But Trump administration and the rest of Americans have no clue as to who these mullahs are. I had to pretty much spend 15 years of my life under this regime. They will not bow. They will not give in. They will get the same deal from Trump administration than they got from Biden and got from Obama. And look, it's happening. I don't have anything personal against Trump. I'm just watching how he's being fooled by the regime of Iran.
So is he in the dark? Because we saw the press had to tell him about the drone attack against Putin's helicopter. The press had to tell him that. He's like, well, I'm hearing that for the first time. And then the press or somebody, he finds out, well, we found out later, he was supposedly not warned that Zelensky was going to attack Putin's bombers sitting on the tarmac. Is he being kept in the dark about the truth when it comes to Islam, when it comes to Iran? Are his advisors failing him?
I don't believe so, no. If it was his first term, I would say yes. But this is the same regime he walked away from in his first term.
So is he being blackmailed? In other words, we talked about that for a lot of years here. Could it be at some point, we've talked about this with, I don't know, it was Michael Yon or who we've talked about this with, but we've talked about the fact, could there be a day and time in which the U.S. really says one thing publicly, but behind the scenes they're saying things to Iran like, we're going to work with you. We're going to work this out. We're going to, give us some time. In other words, is Iran making threats to them? Does Iran already have nuclear weapons in the U.S.? Do they have biological chemicals in the U.S.? Do they have enough terror cells in the U.S.? Does the U.S. know they could bring down the power grid or send their shock troops out to damage power substations? Is there anything of these that I've listed that could be being used to cause this administration to have a lot of fear, and therefore they're trying to placate Iran and are now doing things like offering them some uranium enrichment? Is there any chance we're not being told the truth, and this White House now realizes after getting into power, we have massive existential threats inside the lower 48?
Absolutely, 100%. It's not a chance of we're not being told the truth. It's absolutely what. And again, this is the same administration, if you recall.
Wait, I'm going to stop you right there. Did you just say they're not telling us the truth?
Yes, they are not.
So are you telling me, Annie, tonight that you believe this administration knows about massive existential threats to the homeland, which is why they seem to be being so weak when it comes to Iran?
Absolutely, yes. That's what I'm saying.
And if you had to envision those threats, what are they?
I would say they have enough manpower inside the U.S. to take at least 5 big cities down at the same time.
Okay, that's what you said on this show, 2 years ago?
Yes.
2 years ago, you said, I would not be shocked to wake up and find 5 major U.S. cities basically gone.
Yes.
Are you saying that where we used to be worried about Russia, the former Soviet Union, having nuclear suitcases? We've played the video of Congressman Kurt Weldon, Congressman Dan Burton. We played the video of them showing off a nuclear suitcase made by our mutual friend, Dr. Peter Vincent Pry. But now you're saying maybe it's not Russia anymore. Are you saying that now you would not be shocked if Iran has nuclear weapons already in the U.S.?
For last 5 years, I have said it is absolutely not Russia, it's Iran. It's Iran. Our biggest threat is Iran. I've been saying it for 5 years, and I will continue saying it.
Okay. Now, Annie, what if Iran decides to let one of these off in a city and blame it on Russia? So that
I would, for the relationship Russia and Iran have right now, I would highly doubt it. Because they at the moment, Russia and Iran, if you recall, about a month ago, I was on your program talking about a Substack I did on a personal handwritten letter delivered in person from Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, to Putin in Russia. They are in a very great relationship right now on all angles. I don't, unless it's coordinated, meaning Putin agrees that Khamenei is going to put an order out and then Putin is going to take responsibility for it. Otherwise, I highly doubt it.
So what do you see, if anything, as a trigger for World War III?
Honestly, Brannon, I really think we are already in World War III. We're expecting the guns and the drones and the tanks to get involved. We've been in World War III since second year of Biden. It's just a different type of war.
And when do you think it goes kinetic so the whole nation in America knows we're at World War III? What's the trigger? Is it Israel attacking Iran? Is it Ukraine through NATO and CIA continuing to do these things, which makes me again wonder if the CIA in some segment of it is acting rogue against the Trump administration? Which, I mean, if they took out JFK, some rogue elements in the CIA, Would we be shocked if you have rogue elements inside the CIA making life pretty tough for President Trump by going rogue and doing what they did in Russia with Ukraine? So is it a triggering of the CIA and NATO using the proxy of Ukraine to fight Russia that finally provokes it? Is it Israel striking Iran? What is the trigger, if you had to guess?
If I would guess, a very well-educated guess would be if President Trump continued playing all the wrong cards in the Middle East. Let me elaborate on that. We all just heard with his 3-day trip to the Middle East, he shook hands with Saudi Arabia and then suddenly became super friendly with Syria, lifted all the sanctions. We woke up one morning and Saudi Arabia completely paid off all of Syria's debt in one night, and President Trump signed off on it. Then he goes and negotiates with Iran. Then he goes and tries to make some sort of hold back with Netanyahu. If he continues playing these wrong cards in the Middle East, it's going to get to the real face of World War III. Here at home, we're going to see it.
Okay, wait a minute. Now, explain to our audience that. If he's going around cutting deals with people in the Middle East, why would that trigger a problem? Wouldn't that be appeasing the Middle East?
No. He's making a deal with Saudi Arabia. Somebody asked me a question a few days ago saying, why would Saudi Arabia suddenly wake up and pay all of the debt for Syria? I said, because Saudi Arabia wants to make sure Iran stays out of Syria.
Whoa. Slow down. Repeat that with your beautiful accent. Saudi Arabia pays off all the debts of Syria because Saudi Arabia wants to make sure Iran stays out of Syria.
Exactly. Now Saudi Arabia owns Syria. And Iran was aiming for Syria from day one of the coup d'etat. And President Trump siding with Saudi Arabia just ticked off Iran.
And that escalates more of a kinetic World War III scenario.
Yes. If Iran feels like Trump is not all the way team Iran, they're going to deliver on their promise. They're going to deliver on whatever they're holding against Trump right now for making all these deals.
And what is it you think they're holding against him?
I would say probably a good 12,000 to 15,000 soldiers in our country.
With nuclear weapons, small nuclear weapons?
Yes.
How about biological?
Or even just willingness to go and deliver, let's say Los Angeles, California, downtown LA blowing up. Takes 5 people to do that.
What about biological weapons? We just heard that yesterday the FBI's arrested 2 CCP folks here in the U.S. that have a bioweapon that is really known as is really classified as a potential biological weapon, an agricultural weapon to go after our wheat. It's a pathogen that's known as a potential agro-terrorism weapon against our food. That's the CCP.
Yes.
Does Iran have bioweapons, you think, in the U.S.?
They do have bioweapons, but if they decide to use it, it's not going to be a scenario of food or water. They're going to pick one of the major malls and pretty much kill people right inside of it by releasing the bioweapon. Because remember, we're dealing jihadi. CCP has a different style. Russia has a different style. Iran and its entire proxy of jihadis have I will show you the casualty right away, so you back off and let me do what I want to do. But yes, at this point, it's actually interesting because I'm working for this weekend, just giving a shameless plug for myself. I'm releasing a Substack that is as detailed as you can find the relationship between Cartel and Iran, and how Cartel has imported how many of their soldiers into U.S. within the last 4 years. Okay,
now let's stop right there, because I think you probably know on this broadcast, I've brought that up over and over and over again with various guests.
Yes.
And a few will bite, but most of them look at me like a calf looking at a new gate.
Yes.
Because I'm saying, wouldn't it be natural for the cartels to enrich? I mean, all they care about is money. So wouldn't the cartels be happy to take Iranian money? I mean, the cartels are working with the CCP for their precursors to chemicals to make fentanyl. Wouldn't the cartels gladly work with Iran for using some of their drug tunnels for terror tunnels or using, their networks to bring in jihadis into America or to get the jihadis here and then use the cartels to get them, those terror cells, the military-grade weaponry. Because we know the cartels have the military weaponry because they show it off on social media all the time. It's full-on military weaponry. So when I've asked that, have you seen the shows where I've asked guys that and they don't seem to even have contemplated, some of them, not all of them, but some of them don't even seem to have contemplated Iran, the Islamic terrorist, using and working with the cartels.
Yes. I would say, if my memory recalls correctly, the only person I can name that was on the same page with you was Todd Bensman.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yes. Myself and Todd Bensman have been the only people I can recall saying, yes, that is not, it's not a possibility. It's happening. It's factual.
And yet we know the cartels are in so many major American cities in the U.S., which means they could be the sponsors, the providers, the protectors for the Islamic cells.
Yeah, that's exactly. Here's the thing. If you wait 3 more days and what you've been telling people, the receipt will be on that Substack. I'm dropping names in that Substack of involved people with this transition of weapons provided by Iran, a smuggle provided by cartel to get their soldiers inside big cities in America.
You do know that Todd Bensman was sworn in the other day as a senior advisor to Tom Homan, right?
Yes, I did hear that. And it was such a great news.
Mm-hmm. It's great news. So I'm going to go back to where I started. Do you believe that the Trump administration came in, had things they were talking about doing and accomplishing, and then when they got Kash Patel in, they got Pete Hegseth in, they got Tulsi Gabbard in, they get a few of these people in, maybe Tom Homan with what he's hearing on the ground, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh my word, they've got us over a barrel. And we can't tell the American people this existential threat. Is that what's going on? Because we had a reporter. There's a reporter out there. I want to play it again, Annie. There's a reporter out there with One News Nation. And he's talking about something that the intel community is telling him. Logan, can you help me find that? Is it News Nation? Can you help me find that guy that said that? He says that there are people in the intel community that are telling him the American people have a right to know what's coming. But they all signed NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, so they can't say or they can go to jail. Have you seen this clip, Annie?
I have not, actually.
All right, roll it. Here we go. Listen up.
There's certainly something going to happen in 2027, and I don't know what it is.
Okay.
I've also heard 2034, and I've also heard other dates, much later. But depends who you talk to. Some people say it's a pole reversal. Some people say it's an asteroid hitting the planet. Some people say it's AI reaching quantum, and then all of a sudden we lose the capacity to have control of our own computer systems. I have no idea. What I am aware of is that everybody's telling me we're on borrowed time. And I cannot begin to emphasize how serious a look I get when I say to people who are confiding in me, what's the timescale on this? And they're urging me to be urgent. They're saying to me, people need the right to know this. They have a right to know this. And I'm going, well, what are we talking about? And I feel like shaking these people and say, for God's sake, just bloody tell me. And they are all constrained by their national security oaths. They want the public to know this.
Annie, AI, okay, there's a threat to AI down the road. That to me is down the road. Should we talk about it? Yes. Is it a threat? Yes. I don't think it can be AI in 2027. And they're throwing out all these dates. How do we know it's 2027? How do we know it's not 2025, 2026? I don't know. I just don't think it's AI is the biggest threat to us right now. Agree or disagree?
100% agreed.
Isn't AI
100%.
almost being used as a distraction right now, Annie?
You took the words out of my mouth. I said every time there is something that's bigged up, blown out of proportion, people need to know it's a distraction. Don't pay attention to it. Whatever is being downplayed, that's what you need to pay attention to. For example, negotiations with Iran. You barely hear something about it. Barely anybody saying anything about it. That's where we need to focus. And again, I agree that the public deserves to know, and it's not about what's coming. I think the public deserves to know how much of our country's control is in hands of the Islamic Republic of Iran's regime.
Say that one more time. Say that last sentence again.
The American people deserve to know how much of their life is being controlled by Islamic Republic of Iran's regime.
And by that, controlled, you mean what?
I mean, the government of our government, current administration, is not handling our lives. And by lives, I don't mean day to day. I mean literally breathing, heartbeat, life. They are giving the control of our lives to the Iranian regime by tiptoeing around the problem. We have what it takes to diffuse this problem, this danger, but we're not. So American people deserve to know that at any moment, any of us could be killed with whatever process Iran's regime decide to call their soldiers. They go kill this people in this town, in this city, and it's done. And I will personally not blame them. I will blame the administration. They have the data. They know where the danger is coming from. And instead of facing it, instead of tackling it, they're dancing and tiptoeing around it.
But what if they're dancing and tiptoeing because they don't know where these terror cells are and where the instruments of terrorism are?
Well, here are different scenarios. I'm no expert on national security, but I'll play it as just a normal brain of mine. Okay. Number one option, I don't believe for a second that we don't have the intelligence to find them. I don't. Why? I repeat again. How come we were able to find thousands of people that were somehow their shadow passed by Capitol on January 6th? We don't have the capability to find terrorists?
Okay, wait a minute. I want to make sure the audience heard that. They were able to find all of these grandmas and people on January 6th, but we can't find the terrorists.
Exactly. I don't buy it. But for a second, I'll say, okay, let's buy it. Our government, by constitutional ability, has the right to start monitoring every single mosque in this country again. Where do you think these terrorist cells are getting their guidance and money and plans from?
Well, we know from Dave Gobbets, from these mosques.
We know from Reliance of the Traveler, they're getting it from the mosques. Unless an imam issues a fatwa and orders you to go kill, you are not allowed to go kill. An imam is located in a mosque. Here's your second option. Start monitoring, barge into every mosque, arrest every imam and every person in it. This is war. We can't be nice anymore, and that's my biggest complaint lately. Enough of being nice. We're either going to face the fact that we're at war, or we're all going to be the casualties of this war.
Look at this headline from the Washington Free Beacon. Meet the professor Northwestern hired as part of a deal with student radicals. And I don't know how to say his name. Mekhamar Abusada serves on the boards of organizations that regularly partner with Hamas and the PFLP. Northwestern University professor hired as part of a deal with anti-Israel groups to end last year's encampment, sits on the boards of two organizations that were founded by and frequently partner with Palestinian terrorists, a Washington Free Beacon review found. Last year, President Michael Schill struck a deal with radical student groups, including Students for Justice in Palestine, to end their encampment, agreeing to recruit 2 Palestinian professors and provide full rides to 5 students from Gaza. Annie, what do you know about these kind of people?
I actually, on the Prophet's Foot Soldiers, you'll see that those are stories included in that Substack. I have brought up the professors, the teachers, some of the aides to some of the universities that are basically part of the deal. They are forced into position to continue training. Yes.
They're forced into positions to continue training. What kind of training? Who are they training?
Jihadi training.
In the U.S.?
Training, yes. Inside the U.S., they are training our kids. And that there's a portion of it where I'm very specific. Brannon, the percentage of these trainees are white kids from Christian families inside U.S. Let that sink in for a minute. White kids from Christian families in huge numbers are joining not just these groups of students, but they're actually online standing in front of cameras saying Shahada and becoming Muslims.
But can't we blame that, in my opinion, on people like, I don't know, James White and Interfaith Dialogue, that this is evangelism, this is good, we need to learn to hold hands. Isn't that what James White said? We need to learn to hold hands with each other, with the Islamists, with Yasser Qadi? I mean,
well, to be honest, we could blame him and others, but in my Substack, my conclusion is I'm blaming the parents. Instead of having Sunday dinner and having a Bible study, they're throwing iPhones and iPads at their kids, moving on with their lives. Number one blame goes to parents. They are not watching their kids. They're not teaching their kids. They're just having kids to have kids. There are no values, no morals, no Sunday church. Nothing is left in these families. So when somebody comes and say, one of the sentences I said is they're fooling our kids by saying Islam is what Christianity was supposed to be. Remember, they're claiming Jesus was a prophet of Islam. These are the tools they're using to turn our kids into Muslims into their soldiers.
Of course, then we have
the biggest part of blame goes to parents.
We also now are being told, it looks like, let me see if I have it right. It looks like a judge has maybe just, don't show the screen yet so I can verify it. It looks like a judge has just blocked the Trump administration from deporting the wife and 5 children of the, let's show it now. They've just blocked the Trump administration from deporting the Boulder, Colorado reported jihadist wife and children, from deporting his wife and children, a judge. So isn't part of the problem the fact we have, what would I say, Islamic judges, Islamic sympathetic judges, Marxist judges? What are your thoughts?
I don't know why I'm not even surprised to hear that news.
Wait a minute. Logan. The trio is being handled on an emergency basis by the undersigned due to its urgency and ongoing jury trial, resulting in the unavailability of the U.S. District Judge Nina Y. Yang. That's not the same judge in Colorado? Are you sure? What's her name? This is Wang, W-A-N-G. Well, look at it. Show it on the screen. The TRO, temporary restraining order, is being handled on an emergency basis by the undersigned due to its urgency and ongoing jury trial, resulting in the unavailability of the U.S. District Judge Nina Wang. That's the judge overseeing Mike Lindell's trial right now, right? In Denver? Look it up if you would, please. But apparently, because she's in that trial right now, this temporary restraining order is being handled by someone else, the undersigned, which would be Gordon P. Gallagher. So I go back while Logan's looking that up, because I think that's her. That's the one overseeing Mike's trial. So Lindell's judge normally would have handled this according to this, but she's busy with that trial, so another judge is handling it. So what do you make of these judges? Every time we try to secure the border, secure the nation, deal with enemies, foreign and domestic, we're running into judges.
That's why it goes back to, I don't like to keep saying this, but everybody celebrated on November thinking this is it. This is it. Victory is ours, and we're getting tired of all the wins. But the corruption is deeper than one president. And with all due respect, a president who's coming back for revenge instead of has a slogan of "Make America Great Again." It seems like it's just taking time to make more history for himself before his term is over. But we are being attacked from every corner. And as you said, we're either too busy watching AI and AI reports, or, I mean, again, all day long today, Brannon, all I see is Pride Month canceled. Pride Month canceled. Who cares? Honestly, who cares? I personally don't care. Pride Month canceled or not, it doesn't save our lives from all of this. I'm not promoting Pride Month, but I'm saying our attention, even journalists out there, are distracted.
Well, this one...
They somehow want to hold on to all the wins.
This journalist isn't, and you're not. But I
Exactly.
would agree. And I don't know... I know why this network's growing. By the way, Annie, Logan announced to me this morning that our podcast downloads now are in the top 1% in the country. You know what? There's a reason why that's the case. Because most of them, they would never even think the way you and I think. They're not curious.
Or they're too scared. Brannon, you are literally, yourself and Sharon Hadian are the only people who text or call me and say, hey, the new Substack, we need to talk about it. And you know, a lot of other people receive these too. They don't call me to be on their show. They don't want to touch it.
Why? Why don't they want to touch it? Why don't they want to touch it?
I'll tell you what. There was one program that I reached out myself saying, hey, I just put this thing out. I think it needs some airtime. And the response was, this is great work, but I don't think I want to touch this. Right now, I'm trying to focus on all the victories Trump is bringing to the table.
That's an excuse. They don't want to touch it. They don't want to touch it. They're scared. They don't want to be attacked. They don't want to maybe get a bounty on their head. They don't want to lose audience. They don't want to be censored. They don't want to be shadow banned. Their platform isn't about journalism or reporting or love of country or fear of God. Their platform is all about click, click, advertiser, click, click, fame, click, click. Well, you've been in our studio enough. You've been in my home enough. You've been around my family enough. You know what motivates us.
Yes. Actually, I was having a little bit of argument with a supporter of mine on Facebook over your name yesterday.
Over my name? Why?
A very lovely supporter of mine who's also an audience of your program commented that, you know, it was about me being shadow banned on Facebook. And she said, hey, look at the bright side. People are still watching you on Brown House Live. Another supporter called her a scammer thinking she's promoting somebody else on my page. I said, Brannon, I've been on Brannon's show for more than 5 years now, and he's the only one who gives me a platform to talk about this kind of stuff. And they basically, of course, they apologized later, but automatically, that's what I'm saying, though. It's the repetition. Don't name anybody else's on my platform. Don't bring anybody who might know more than I do. Don't bring an expert. Journalism has died. Pretty much it's a handful of us out there who are still doing it. And yes, some of us are doing it for the right reason. I mean, I'll admit, a huge part of my reasoning is I'm not going back under Sharia ever again. I can't. I won't. I refuse to receive that message. But people don't get it. Sadly, as you said on the last show I was on, seems like, Brannon, people are about to get what they deserve.
Yep. And this judge, by the way, is this Judge Gallagher who is stopping, doing the temporary restraining order against Trump administration, removing the reported jihadi of Boulder's family, wife and children. He is, according to what I'm looking at online, a Biden judge, a Biden appointee. So here we have judges interfering with our national security. These people are making America at great risk. I believe that.
Exactly. Again, going back to the other Substack about the Colorado terrorist, it's literally, I concluded on betray the oath, cash the check. Because that's what these police chiefs are doing. This is what they're doing. They are betraying the oath they took to protect us. When they come on any of these cameras and microphones and read the same script, lone wolf, too early to call it this. We need to heal as a community. This has nothing to do with Islam. All of those are scripted lines. Every single time they say those, they are betraying their oath. And we're sitting back watching it, looking the other way. Until one day there is no other way to look. The only thing we'll see is our demise right in front of us.
Let's wrap this up, Annie. I need people to go to liveuptofreedom.substack.com. It's been on the screen. Been showing your articles and headlines. liveuptofreedom.substack.com. She also has a show here, doesn't she, guys? Isn't Annie on with us?
Yes.
She's about to, or yes?
About to. We were about to start this week, but unfortunately with my injury, we had to push it for next week.
Okay. She had a little slip and fall, guys. All right, but she's about to come back. Annie, what is it that everybody was awake after 9/11 for a while?
Yes.
Although they say 9/11, Usama Dakdok says 9/11 caused a lot of recruitment for Islam. Islam recruited a lot of new followers and converts after 9/11 because people started looking into it and like, I think I'll join this. Do you believe that, number one? Do you believe that?
Yes, I have always said September 11 was not about killing Kafirs. It was about opening the gate of acceptance.
It was not about killing Kafirs, which is the word they use for
Infidels.
Infidels, yeah. So in wrapping this, what do you think awakens the American people again on Islam? Because they finally went to sleep on Islam, right? They went to sleep again. What awakens them? Is it multiple churches attacked in one day? I don't even think, to be honest with you, if you hit multiple synagogues, I think most Americans would say, oh, that's too bad, and be on to something else the next day. Half of the country, or a certain percentage of the country, would celebrate it because so many of them are anti-Semitic. Well, what is it going to take for Americans to wake up? I'm not even sure if you attacked a few churches in America on a given day, it would fall off the narrative in the news cycle pretty quick, and people will be on to something else because, again, a big percentage of the country hates Christians too. It's going to have to be something where it's like not a synagogue, not a church. It's going to have to be where it's a school with children, God forbid, the perfect day we've been warning about since 2008 after Beslan, or it's going to be a mall. It's going to be something that's not a church and not a synagogue. Would you agree?
I would actually disagree altogether.
Really? Why?
Brannon, I don't think a lot of people are asleep when it comes to Islam.
You don't?
I don't think that's the problem. No. Majority of Americans have bought into coexistence. They have accepted Islam as their neighbor.
So you don't call that being asleep? You don't call that being asleep?
No, there's a difference. Being asleep is when you are uninformed. September 11 happened. Half of this country didn't even know how to say Islam. It was so unknown. But when it becomes an accepted topic, culture, quote-unquote religion, then it's alliance.
So you're saying you believe a big chunk of Americans have an alliance now with Islam?
Exactly. And
but
that's
you know what? That's what
Alan
Dershowitz said. No, that's what Yasser Qadi said himself, that when he goes to these universities, 15% of the kids are Islamic. The others are Americans defending them.
Yeah. We have an alliance.
So what would awaken the American people? Not an attack on the churches or the synagogues, right?
It won't be an attack at all. Because remember, narrative is they can blow up a full estate and the cameras are going to roll, and the sentence is going to be hijacked, radicalized, lone wolf mental illness.
So they'll make an excuse for it.
Exactly. And
they'll say that's not real Islam.
Exactly. So I think the only hope we have left is we're realizing three different steps taken at the same time. Number one, for Americans to be properly educated about Islam through their churches.
Well, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
And that's why I say the reawakening will not happen in America when it comes to Islam. It won't.
A reawaken will not happen when it comes to Islam in the United States. You're 100% right.
We can educate, which we will, because that's our duty. But unless churches stop, I have, again, another subject that came up this week that I mentioned how churches have betrayed us. Because unless they start telling the truth, unless they sit there and say, this is the truth about this Islam thing that we're telling you, most people are going to just follow this alliance.
The Jesus of Nazareth versus the Jesus of Islam.
Yes.
Let me switch real quick. I actually announced it on your show, which was brought up on one of the comments on that subject that said maybe it's time for me to do a comparison, and I did. Not using my bad experiences, not using my bias. I've used Bible versus Quran to show people who their Jesus is, and of course we already know who our Savior is. Right. Let me switch real quick to Yasser Qadi again. He is talking about the Hindus. He's really, apparently, I guess, really trashing on the Hindus. Let me see if I can find I have so many articles open again tonight. Here it is. Blasphemy laws by stealth. The global war on Hindus and Jews. From India's jails, Texas mosque. Yasser Qadi is a Pakistani-Thai cleric in Texas who cloaks his radical anti-Hindu and anti-Jewish rhetoric in academic language while preaching the same ideological hate that fuels Islamic blasphemy mobs like the one that put 22-year-old student Sharmista behind bars in India. She sits behind bars in India not because she committed violence or incited a mob, but because she dared to grieve out loud. She condemned a Pakistani-backed Islamic terror attack in Pahalgam where innocent Hindu pilgrims were brutally slaughtered. Her pain was raw, her words were emotional, and for this she was hunted, arrested, is now rotting in a jail without trial, suffering with kidney stones, denied hygiene, and barred from even basic reading material. So she's a Hindu that's now been arrested in Pakistan. Wow.
Right below on my Substack, the one before the Jesus of Nazareth versus Jesus of Islam, you'll see the one I did on when Pakistan falls, touching on that very base.
So you're aware of this article?
Yes. And that's the thing. The reason somebody asked me to write about that. A lot of people are thinking, Pakistan is just going to, have the civil war and all that. It's like, no. This is all part of the plan. It's part of the plan. They won this war going on inside Pakistan and split it into different countries again, because that's how they expand. We talked about it on your show before. Pakistan didn't exist. Basically, UK gave them the country. They're all Indians. Pakistanis are Indians. There's no race as Pakistan.
And Pakistan is aligned with China, right?
I bring that up, yes. China is in a very bad position right now because they don't know what to do. Do they hold on to their land over there, or do they let the division continue? But China pretty much owns part of Pakistan.
Listen to what Yasser Qadi has to say about the Hindus. Here we go. Now remember, he's from Pakistan.
A few months ago,
which means he's Hindu.
What's that?
Which means he's Indian.
Yeah, I guess so. He's from Pakistan, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, here he is.
I gave a khutbah a few months ago about the BJP and Hindutva, and it is important to point out that the equivalent of Hindutva is Nazism. The Nazi ideology of Germany and the Hindutva RSS, they were appreciating one another. They were actually, the symbols of the Nazi party is actually coming from the Hindutva ideology.
Okay, can we just stop right there? Because most people will hear that and look at the Nazi symbol the swastika and say, oh, wow, yeah. There have been groups that have had that symbol long before the Nazis came along. Native Americans would wear that on their uniforms playing basketball long before Hitler came along. I have the pictures. This is a symbol that's used by the Hindus that Hitler took because Hitler was into Eastern mysticism, reincarnation, altered states of consciousness, etc. The occult, okay? It's in my book, The Coming Religious Reich, and some of my documentaries. So don't believe, I don't think you should be believing what Yasser's telling you here, because that symbol was around long before Hitler. And you're going to try to tell me because Hitler took it and you, and I'm not defending the symbol, but you're telling me that Hindus, and I don't agree with Hinduism and many gods and polytheism and all that, but I know some very nice Indians from India in my community. I've done business with them. They have no problem with what I do. They know I'm a Christian. They know I teach the Bible. They think what I do is very interesting. They're not interested in converting. Tried. But they think what I do is very interesting. They find it interesting. They agree with me on many things related to politics or economics, private property, because a lot of them are business people that own property. They're not hostile to me. They're not hostile to our country. So don't buy what Yasser's telling you, because the truth is that symbol was around long before Hitler. Now, if you want to talk about the similarities between Muslim Brotherhood, Islam, and Nazis, now let's have that conversation, Yasser Qadi, because it was the Grand Mufti of Palestine that Hitler gave the apartment to in Berlin to go on radio and to invite the Islamists to come help wipe out the Jews. And then when we're done here, we'll go over to, quote, Palestine or Philistine and wipe out the Jews over there. They just never got around to it because Hitler got his Third Reich fell apart. But if you want to talk, don't forget, they were taking Mein Kampf, my struggle, and translating it into Arabic, into my jihad, passing it all over the Middle East. Does Yasser Qadi really want to have a conversation about the Nazis and Muslim Brotherhood, the Nazis and Islam, or recruiting the Nazis that were wearing their little red fezzes? The Muslims that were wearing the red fezzes, who the Grand Mufti of Palestine recruited these Bosnian Muslims to wear the Nazi uniform with the sword of Islam and the Nazi symbol. I have pictures of that, black and white. Mm-hmm. Does Yasser really want to have this conversation, Annie?
Well, I have a different question, actually. My question is like the level of hypocrisy. So the man who denies Holocaust is now talking about Nazis?
Yep.
Yep. Who would listen to this guy? Like, hypocrisy. Holocaust doesn't happen, but Hindus are the root of Nazis.
Why has this man not been deported? Why has he not been deported? Because in my opinion, he should be deported.
Yes, he should be deported, and there is plenty of evidence against him to be tried and deported. But again, it goes back to we have an alliance. The red-green axis is official in America, and citizens of this country have come to like it. They feel, I feel like it's kind of that Stockholm syndrome. Let them be, let's not provoke them. Remember, average Americans have literally messaged me saying, maybe if you stop talking about them, they would have stopped issuing fatwas on your head. That's their solution. If we go quiet, we can all coexist, live together, there won't be any more jihad, and there won't be any more beheading. That's what they believe. And that's the sad part. So they know who these people are. But instead of fighting back, they prefer to just sit quietly and imagine or have this illusion that we're going to get along.
Yep. All right, let's go back to Yasser Qadi now that we got the context of history versus what he's saying.
A few months ago about the BJP and Hindutva, and it is important to point out that the equivalent of Hindutva is Nazism. The Nazi ideology of Germany and the Hindutva RSS, they were appreciating one another. They were actually, the symbols of the Nazi party is actually coming from the Hindutva ideology. So Nazism is the same manifestation. Just like you cannot say every Christian is a Nazi, Nazism is a fascism within a faith. Just like Judaism and Zionism, they're not the same thing. So too, Hinduism and Hindutva, they're not the same thing. So what we are critical, but in the global scene, right now, India is at the #1 potential for genocide. And it is going to take place primarily against the minorities. And who is the #1 minority in India? It is us. #1 region of potential genocide. May Allah protect, but if and when that straw on the camel's back breaks, if and when that happens, we are going to see something the likes of which we haven't seen since Rwanda, since we have even worse than Rwanda and whatnot. May Allah protect. So now is the time to get involved. Now is the time to raise our voice and to put any type of pressure, lots of dua, and the very least public awareness. So my appeal to all of us, and especially us from that region, but all Muslims, to study, to read, to listen to what's going on, to follow the news, and then to volunteer.
Volunteer. All right. So why doesn't he bother talking about all the Nigerian Christians being slaughtered by the Islamists?
Receding gums and decaying teeth ruining your life.
Why doesn't he talk about all the Christians in Nigeria being slaughtered by the Muslims, Annie?
Well, because that doesn't fit the narrative. What he is doing right now is setting up the stage. As I mentioned on the Substack over in Pakistan Falls, he's setting up the stage. So when they start attacking Indians and Indians retaliate, we have a Gaza-Israel story going on. He's setting up the stage, Indians versus Pakistanis, because he knows what Pakistan is about to do. It's all about the narrative.
And people wonder, why is it these people are like this? I don't know. It is demonic, I think, but maybe they're not the brightest people. And why aren't they very bright? Is it possible because they're so busy marrying their first cousin? Watch this.
People will have seen this, which was done to highlight some of the damages that can be done as a result of first cousin marriage. So here's a little clip of it.
Mohsin has a rare genetic disease which is gradually destroying his body.
So it says there that in that clip, and that was obviously from a good few years ago now, but the statistic at the time, Mustafa, that Channel 4 used was that more than half of British Pakistanis marry their first cousin.
More than half of British Pakistanis marry their first cousin. Hello?
Is that a problem?
I think that when propagated over multiple generations, it is a problem. And I mean, again, the argument is fairly simple. It's twofold. One is the sort of public health argument to reduce the burden on public resources, but also to improve the health of these often vulnerable and marginalized communities themselves. It is, in fact, in their interest to do so. What often causes a lot of the resistance to measures to reduce such sorts of cultural practices is the general impression that a lot of these communities get that the ban is being used as a cudgel, another cudgel of many other cudgels to beat them over the head with. And so a certain degree of sensitivity needs to be maintained when engaging these communities so that they don't shut themselves off. But nevertheless, it remains the case that it is in the public health interest, and further that it will help fashion the formation of a national identity, a pluralistic identity.
Okay, so why are they marrying first cousins? Well, I did a little research on that today, Annie, and apparently they like to marry first cousins because it has to do with keeping, the money in the family and the history and the heritage. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is when people, one generation after another, start intermarrying, you end up with people that don't have a lot of thinking ability and common sense. It's your certain, and you're wondering, how is it these people follow these ideas and these ideologies? And I have to start wondering if some of it isn't because there are people their bloodline's been corrupted, for Pete's sake. They got some serious problems going on, but they sure are worried about what's going on in other parts of the world. Sounds like to me they ought to just worry about their own basic genetics.
Well, let me add an extra point to your research on why they married. By the way, this isn't just Pakistan. This is an Islamic ritual. Muslims marry.
Right, that's right, that's right.
And here's the religious aspect of it. Muhammad's daughter was married to Muhammad's nephew. They were first cousins. The very first Islamic, big, major Islamic marriage was Muhammad's daughter, who was given to Ali, who later became the first Imam of Shia sect, who was his cousin, basically. So a lot of Muslims honor Muhammad's ritual of marrying first cousin. Another part for the reason.
The baby's paying the price of cultural tradition. It's estimated that more than half of Pakistani heritage couples in Britain are in cousin marriages.
Yes, and it has been proven that Middle Easterns in general have the most rare and weird genetic illnesses they can find. And that's exactly because of all of these inner, first cousin marriages.
Watch a little of this, folks. Here we go.
For most Britons, marriage is a rather random process. You meet someone new, fall in love, and then tie the knot. You may know very little about your new partner's attitudes, values, or family. For communities that practice cousin marriage, that random approach seems very alien. They celebrate marriage within the family, believing such unions are stronger, building as they do on already tight family networks. Naila Butt, like 55% of British Pakistanis, is married to her first cousin. Naila and Farouk's wedding was in Pakistan 9 years ago.
My lovely husband, I just knew that there was somebody that my family had found compatible for me. And, he was similar education, similar background, similar likes in the family. And it just happened to be that he was my first cousin. Farouk's father and my father were very close. And so for us, it was very nice for us to kind of bring that bond together, if you like.
It's been a happy marriage. Naila and Farouk now live in Birmingham with their 2 children, Danesh and Hikmah. Naila's glad she married a cousin.
You have an understanding, you have the same kind of family history. When you reminisce about old times, whether it's in here, whether it's in England or in Pakistan, then you know who you're talking about. And it's just a nicer kind of emotional feel.
Mama.
Family events are always really nice because everybody, it just seems that my in-laws and, Farouk's in-laws are together and related.
It's not mine, it's mine. But marrying someone who is themselves a close family member carries a risk for children, a risk that lies within the code of life itself.
Yeah. But hey, the nice thing is when you have family reunions on both sides, everybody knows each other because they're all related.
And I love how she's like, it just so happened that he's my first cousin.
It just so
that's the most irrelevant part. Just so happens. No, darling. They started looking at your first cousin first.
It was arranged.
That's the disgusting part. I think I'm a little triggered here. Me personally, I was promised to my cousin.
Really?
I was barely 3 years old when, my family and their family, and hey, how about this? When they grow up, we're just going to marry into each other.
Was it your first cousin?
Yes. My uncle from my mother's side's son.
Wow.
It is. No, they don't go looking for and that's what I'm mentioning again. So my family found me a good match, which goes back to the forced marriage, arranged marriages that we talk about. She just admitted to that, right? It wasn't that first cousin fell in love with me, knocked at my dad's door and said, hey, I want your daughter. My family goes hunting for a husband for me. In one video, you just brought up like 10 issues with what's happening with Islamic families.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And you wonder,
thank you for playing it.
And you wonder why you end up with multiple generations, and all of a sudden, they're several fries short of a Happy Meal, and will go along with whatever some imam is claiming you should go do to the kafirs at Friday's prayer. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, let's go do that, boys. I don't think they have Southern accents, but I mean, really, you got some people who I don't think are firing on all cylinders, and now let's incite them. Wasn't it the FBI that was running around under Biden trying to recruit and turn into so-called terrorists these kids that had mental issues, and the parents were having a fit and telling the FBI to stay away from our kids? They were trying to entrap kids that didn't have the mental capacity to know what they're being set up for, and they're trying to set them up so they can say, look at this, you got these white, middle American terrorists to fit their narrative, right? So why do they do that? Because they're easily set up. How many generations do you have of this inbreeding of your first cousins until you have a group of people that are not all there? Their elevators don't go all the way to the top, and they're easily incited because they're not real bright. I'm just asking questions, Annie.
And they are very good questions. Genuinely, it's a question of, is this what it is? Or has evil infiltrated human society so deeply that people are willing to do it?
You ever seen the movie Wrong Turn? The movie Wrong Turn?
I have not, no.
It's a movie about some kids that end up making a wrong turn out in the middle of the sticks and end up on a compound of a family that's been inbred for multiple generations, and they look like, what you would expect. And this kind of reminds me of, you make a wrong turn, you end up in some kind of camp, and yeah, wow. All right, that's about all I got. liveuptofreedom.substack.com. liveuptofreedom.substack.com. As always, Annie, you're very appreciated.
And so are you, Brannon. I really mean it. Thank you for staying on top of this, because the rest of the names out there are dropping the microphone on it and not even touching it. So appreciate you still bringing it to your audience attention.
Glad to do it. Thank you, Annie. Folks, we'll be right back after this break.
Introducing the Sentry Wellness System, the ultimate under-sink water treatment solution designed with you in mind. Say goodbye to harmful toxins and hello to water enriched with essential nutrients like calcium and magnesium. Enjoy the benefits of increased pH for on-demand alkalinity, all from a zero-waste system that fits seamlessly into your home. Installation is a breeze, taking just 15 minutes, so you can have clean, healthy, great-tasting water straight from your tap. Perfect for apartments, homes, rentals, and even RVs. Elevate your hydration and well-being with the Sentry Wellness System, because you deserve the best in every drop.
Sentry H2O. Tap into wellness.
All right, guys, please go here, worldviewfoundation.com. If you appreciate all we're doing, all we're pushing out, we need your support. This is one of the biggest ways you can support us. Our foundation helps us keep the broadcast open for everybody. Logan told me today that our podcasts are now in the top 1% of all the podcasts in America. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Yeah. We keep all this stuff free. Keeping ministry front and center, education, trying to help people win the battle for the mind. Hey, if you appreciate the fact we're trying to wake up Americans, have Americans be informed, have knowledge, have wisdom, this is our ministry. It's not just our profession. It's also our ministry. And so we want everyone to have access. We don't want single moms that are on a fixed income shut out, seniors on a fixed income. We don't want people shut out from hearing the truth. We want to keep it where more and more people can hear the truth, particularly your skeptics, your critics, your people that are non-committal. They don't know what to think. They don't know what to believe. They're not going to pay to get behind a paywall. Some people watch us, don't even like us. And then they end up being some of our biggest fans, supporters. They were never going to buy a paywall to watch us. So we need to keep it open, because there is a battle. It's a battle for the mind, for the heart. And don't forget, we also have a church service on Sunday nights where I'm teaching through the book of Revelation. This Sunday night, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, I'm back at it, worldviewtube.com, with our Sunday night church service, Revelation chapter 17, verse 1. This will be lesson 40, over 40 hours teaching through the book of Revelation, and I'm loving it. I'm learning a lot. Really am. Then I'm going to go to the book of Daniel after this one. So, please, we need your support. worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address there if you want to support us through the mail, worldviewfoundation.com. All right. Yesterday, I pre-recorded an interview with Karen Kingston. I had so much going on, I just had to start pre-recording some of them. And I pre-recorded this yesterday with Karen. I want you to watch it. Here it is. Joining me now is Karen Kingston. Get ready to write down her website and go to her Substack, because she has a new article out, and you're going to want to go there, and you're going to want to read what she's putting out tonight, because she actually has talked about a lot of these things and that they were coming. And she and I talked about many of these things 2-3 years ago. And again, she's writing about it on her Substack. Here's one of them right here. New CDC guidelines for COVID-19 shots contradicts RFK Jr.'s announcement. We also, as always, have some great slides. Karen, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Brannon. Yeah, the story I just broke a couple hours ago is Pfizer's documents confirm COVID-19 shots contain self-amplifying mRNA. So those were in the clinical trial shots and some of the EUA lots. Is that it is this self-amplifying mRNA that is being released in other countries and is being fast-tracked by the FDA, but unbeknownst to us, it is what was used to cause the variants that infected other people. And it's all over Pfizer's documents. And you and I had covered this 3 years ago in 2021. And we didn't really discuss the self-amplifying mRNA, but what we did discuss was the fact that the shots were causing the variants and that there was 12 formulations that were used. So I wasn't able to pull the video clip. I wasn't able to find it, but I have screenshots of our interview and the documents if you want to go through some of them with your audience.
Here's the first shot.
So this we covered many times too. That's the Operation Warp Speed contract. And it says right there in the contract that the primary objective of the study is to describe the safety and tolerability profiles of prophylactic BNT162 vaccine candidates after a single dose for saRNA, the self-amplifying RNA, and then 2 doses of uRNA and mod RNA, mRNA. So it's in the Warp Speed contract. And then if you go on to the next slide, this is the December 10th Pfizer meeting with the FDA. I mean, I pulled things, I highlighted things, but it's their slide, and it says right there that one of the candidates, as you can see, the fourth one is self-amplifying RNA, and they define it as self-amplifying mRNA, RNA on the meeting. So this is the December 10th meeting, the day before the emergency use authorization, is one of the candidates. And then if you go on to the next slide, we covered this in 2021. This is the clinicaltrials.gov, the NIH site for all the clinical trials. And it says right there, the assessment, this is for the Pfizer phase 3 trials. The assessment of boostability will be further expanded in a subset of phase 3 participants at selected sites who will receive a third dose of BNT162b2 at 30 micrograms, or a third and potentially fourth dose of prototype BNT162b variant of concern based upon the South African variant and hereafter referred to as BNT162b2SA. They've never called a variant after a nation. It was always, they use these alphanumeric codes, and they called them like Omicron or Delta, or they use these different Latin alphabet letters. So, I'm looking at that being like, that's the self-amplifying. They're using SA to let you know that they're using a self-amplifying version of mRNA. And if you go on to the next slide, this just explains the next slide is from BioNTech.
This one right here or this one here?
Yeah, this one. So they said it was unmodified mRNA in the Operation Warp Speed contract in the December 10th presentation, but it's actually what they put on the BioNTech site was it's the uridine, the naturally occurring uridine RNA. But I want to just point out that many experts have come forward and say it's actually a pseudouridine, so it stabilizes the molecules, these biosynthetic pathogens, so that they don't dissolve. And that's what self-amplifying mRNA is, right? Instead of having mRNA that disappears within a couple days or hours from your body, it stays in your body, and then it also continues to fully replicate the biosynthetic pathogen. So I just wanted to point that out, that that's been confirmed by other experts that they didn't even use uridine. Now, how do we know there's different formulations? Again, I've presented this slide probably 7 or 8 times on your show. And when they gave the approval of the biological license application for Pfizer, the FDA wrote in the approval document that they would send out dear healthcare provider letters to let the doctors know that some of the emergency use authorization lots were not compliant with the Comirnaty formulation, which means that other lots that the lots varied in formulation. That's exactly what it means, right? So we know that there were multiple formulations that were used. And if you go on to the next slide, this is what I presented during our November 2021 presentation. Was these are the 12, if you go to clinicaltrials.gov, these are the 12 formulations that they have. Now, I wrote the stuff to the right-hand side explaining what it is, but they just have BNT 162b 2SA, and that is the self-amplifying mRNA. I mean, I think we know that they've been lying to us about everything else. You know, they said it was originally uridine. We know now that it's pseudouridine. They were saying that this is mRNA and it dissolves quickly. We know from many experts, specifically even Dr. Peter McCullough, saying they're finding the spike protein in the bodies up to 2 years out and even after people die. Well, that's what self-amplifying mRNA does, right? So it's in their documents. And if you go to the next slide, I point out about, and I guess we weren't talking about self-amplifying mRNA at the time. We were just being told that the mRNA that was in the shots would dissolve in a couple days, and somehow or another it didn't. But I don't know if you want to read this, but I point out that Here's
the problem. It's November 26, 2021, and now there's a South African variant. Go to the next slide. Pfizer had the mRNA formulation for South African variant on April 29, 2020, last year. And it's what I said to you before the Delta variant came out. The vaccines are causing the variants. And now the South African variant is naturally emerging around the globe. It's now naturally emerging. This is a man-made big pharma NIH attack on the world, in quote, November 26, 2021. So I was just in D.C. a few weeks ago. And after I got back from D.C., I got sick again. And I've been struggling with my voice, being hoarse, want to go to bed at 6 o'clock, but hey, I can't. I also had someone else with me in D.C., Ann Vandersteel, who I talked to the other day, and she's struggling with being completely wiped out. And I'm like, Ann, I think we both got COVID again. It was going around on the East Coast, highly infectious, they were saying, a new variant. Well, okay, maybe so, but it isn't something that just popped up. You're saying this is just people who got the shot and now they're getting another variant that is vaccine induced. And these people are going to keep getting sick because they're continuing to produce spike proteins that produce this illness that they then can spread to us.
Yeah, when we were lied to that that the mRNA was whatever the mRNA we're supposed to believe that it goes out of your body in a couple days. It's the self-amplifying mRNA. And then keep in mind, Brannon, you and I also covered James Giordano, where he said this stuff can also, the nanoparticulate matter, he can aerosolize it. He can create, he can cause heart attacks. He can aerosolize it in a room. It can also be put into someone's beverages, and it can be put in food.
Are you seeing the stories about all the young people that are dropping dead of heart attacks?
Yeah, I know. It's tragic. It's absolutely tragic. But,
So how are we getting this? Is it people who have the shot that are continuing to produce the spike proteins and get sick and make us sick? Or is it are they spraying it? Are they putting it in food? Is the mRNA going into our food? How are we getting this? How do we keep getting sick?
It could be all of the above, I mean, to be honest, it could absolutely be all of the above. But, it says in Ralph Barrick's 2016 publication, when he talks about how it's not of pandemic potential yet, I mean, Dr. Barrick talks about how this replicates, it's self-replicating within its replication competent progeny, right? Progeny is the viruses making the variants. And that was also covered by Jordan Walker. I want to point this out. So we did the interview on November 26th, and on the left-hand side, this was the USA Today's headline was World Experts Hold Special Meeting on Warning New COVID Variant in South Africa. Latest update. The next morning, the whole internet scrubbed South African after you and I did the interview, which was actually, it was, anyway, self-amplifying mRNA, and they changed it to Omicron.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was something that had it. So we know people watch this. But yeah, if you want to keep going through just the more evidence that this is self-amplifying mRNA and it causes the variants, on May 3rd, Clinical Trials Arena published an article saying that people aren't going to need a booster to prevent SARS-CoV-2, but there's variants of concerns that are going to be coming out. And you go to the next slide, and sure enough, without missing a beat, let me see this. New York Times says the Delta variant's here, right? And I just want to point out on the next slide, and I've gone on through this too, is they're ordering the variants from biopharma companies. So this is Sinopec. And you can see here the SARS-CoV-2 variant bank. So they're putting these biosynthetic pathogens into the shots, into the boosters. They're self-amplifying. They're reproducing the full viral sequences. They're reproducing the spike proteins, and they're shedding them on people. And even in the New York Times article admitted that it could be that the new variants shed. This just shows that SARS-CoV-2 itself is likely a self-amplifying mRNA pathogen. This article was published by expert scientists, nanotechnology scientists out of La Jolla, UC San Diego and La Jolla, and they say that nanotechnology has been used before, and this is, specifically this would be the self-amplifying mRNA. In other respiratory viruses, and they specifically cite MERS, the Middle Eastern respiratory virus, and SARS-CoV-1. And so now they're saying SARS-CoV-2. But yeah, I know we're just going to go through this pretty quick. I think the next one, oh no, skip to the next one. So this was an article that was published in the Qatar Medical Journal in 2021, and they explained the Delta variant. And it says, it is estimated that SARS-CoV-2 can make more than 1 billion copies of itself after infecting an individual. So people were injected with the self-amplifying mRNA to encode the spike protein, but also the full sequence to continue to produce the pathogen that's producing the spike protein. And it says during this rapid replication, some mistakes occur. These are manifested as mutations inside the genetic material of the virus. The more chances the virus has to expand, the more it replicates, and the more chances it undergoes changes. An error in this copying process prompts a mutation, which is a variant. So I remember you had me on with Dr. James Thorpe, I think it was in 2021 too, and he had said, yeah, people are producing trillions of these pathogens in their bodies. So as they're replicating it, they are creating the variants that we are calling the COVID-19 pandemic.
Is there another slide? There we go. There is another one. There we go.
Yeah, the last one, I just wanted to point out that the World Health Organization still has this up on their website. They have a lot of things, but they just confirm the more opportunities a virus has to spread, the more it replicates. So the more you replicate, we're replicating this, and people are replicating this in their bodies through the shots, the more opportunity it has to undergo changes. So, and Peter Marks, the former director, vaccine chief at the FDA in March, was at Duke University, and he laughed that the boosters were less than effective at preventing the infection. So they know that they were causing the diseases not just in the inoculated people, the injected people, but then that they would then infect other people. And we were lied to about the type of mRNA that was used in the shots. And I guess that should be no surprise, right? We were lied to about the nanotechnology, the Bluetooth technology. I saw Catherine Austin Fitz recently did an interview where she talks about the Bluetooth technology and being tagged and the Internet of Bodies and the shots being part of it. So people are now speaking up about things that you and I addressed almost 4 years ago now.
Almost 4 years ago now. There you go. Staying ahead of the trends, aren't we, Karen?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think we are. And I think it's shocking that Pfizer's documents show that they're using self-amplifying mRNA, or that they use them, in the trials and the emergency use authorization laws. Do you have any thoughts or comments on that? Or
well, if it wasn't for folks like you and some of the other smart people we interview who break all this down in layman terms, we'd be pretty lost as to understanding the context. But you keep bringing the receipts, so it's kind of hard not to believe it, right?
Yeah, it says Pfizer. It says self-amplifying mRNA. They spell it out during their their FDA meeting on December 10th. So it's not, I think they do switch around and use code words, and we've been lied to by a lot of things. But when you dig deep into their documents, you can see that everything we were told to about the pandemic and about the shots has all been lies. And if there is another outbreak, Brannon, we know it's man-made. We know it's not whatever the next pandemic is not going to be something that's natural at all. I mean, and it doesn't seem like there's been a natural pandemic, in the last 100 years.
Well, check this out. Leo Holman tonight. 2 Chinese nationals arrested in Michigan on charges of smuggling deadly pathogen in the United States.
Yeah.
And this one, I guess they're loyal members of the CCP. And I guess this one goes after our wheat crop. Did you see that?
I didn't see that, but that makes sense. I mean, I covered the China National Gene Bank, and they're working on, that's where this is headquartered, but we also covered mRNA in the food supply in early 2022 at a UC University of California, Riverside, right? So they've been working on creating pathogens to contaminate the food supply, of everything from wheat to corn to lettuce to our livestock. So it's not surprising. This is I guess where I'm kind of at a loss now is that this is clearly a massive attack on humanity. Like it to me seems more than just reducing the population. They're exterminating human beings. They're exterminating us, and those that survive, they're making a subhuman, someone that's going to be diseased. We know that these technologies, within 15 minutes of being injected, go straight to the brain. So there's neurocognitive dysfunction. And as I mentioned, Catherine Austin Fitts also even talked about the Internet of Bodies. So using, being connected and controlled through the electromagnetic frequencies and whatnot. So it's destroying our species and creating this subhuman, who, like I said, who survived, we're like the subhuman version of us. So I don't know why, Brandon, people aren't more outraged, speaking up, demanding that the mRNA shots that's currently on the market be pulled off the market. And I saw you reported even on the Palantir saying, they're going to create a digital surveillance program and profile on every American.
Yep.
And that's going to include our our biological makeup, which they're going to make biodigital, like through these technologies that are injected and aerosolized, and they're contaminating us with.
Wow. Go to her Substack, KarenKingston.substack.com, KarenKingston.substack.com. As always, Karen, we appreciate all your work, the slides you spend the time building and sending to us so we can explain all this. Keep up the great work, and I hope folks will visit KarenKingston.substack.com. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Brennan.
Thank you, Karen. Karen Kingston checking in tonight. All right, guys, I also pre-recorded this next interview with Dr. Lana. Last week, I sent her some information on iron. I said, hey, Doc, let's talk about people that don't have enough iron in their system. What does this impact? How does this impact your heart fluttering, hair loss, being cold? What different things does it affect in your body if you don't have enough iron? And how do you get more iron into your system? And what kind of test do you take to test your levels of iron? So that's what I talked about with Dr. Lana, and I hope you'll watch this that I pre-taped yesterday. Here we go. Joining me now is Dr. Lana, our weekly visit. Tonight we're going to talk about the importance of iron. What happens if you don't have enough iron in your diet? Dr. Lana, welcome back.
Hello. Always a pleasure.
You too, my friend. Okay, so what happens to your body and your brain and your hair and all these other things, your body temperature or your feeling of being cold? What happens to you when you don't have enough iron? And what's the best way to get enough iron?
Right. Great questions. Great topic. And you can have a lot of symptoms, like you mentioned, hair, some of the symptoms besides, fatigue, exhaustion, it affects your thyroid. And some people get tachycardic. So that means like their heart is fluttering. They have a racing heart. And some people also have just like GI issues, and they're just have a feeling of malaise and fatigue, and they're telling their doctors they don't feel well, and they're not looking specifically at the iron. And we need to get iron ourselves. Our body does not make iron. And a lot of people misunderstand that. They're like, oh, well, my liver makes iron, or my kidneys make iron, no, you get iron in your diet. So some of the easiest ways to get it, because you can't eat, yes, obviously red meat, and that's your heme iron. So you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, poultry, meat, and all of that is true. But if you eat an excess of all of the eggs and the poultry and the meat, now you're starting to damage your blood vessels and kidneys and all of that. So it's not eat meat all day long every day. You can do some other really great ways to get iron, and there's a couple tricks I'll tell you too to make it more bioavailable, so it's going to be absorbed easier. So simple things like fruits and vegetables and prune juice, things like that are very, very simple. Dried fruits are great. And here's the trick too. A lot of doctors won't stop, they're busy, to explain that you need vitamin C. So a great way, I want you to think of, okay, what type of vitamin C in fruits and vegetables can I add to this dish? Because the vitamin C will help the bioavailability of the iron. So for example, if you're going to have a beautiful like spinach salad, which is a great plant source, chop up some beautiful like strawberries and mandarin oranges and maybe some citrus fruits in your spinach salad. So now you've got the vitamin C with the plant-based iron source, and you can do that if you're going to eat meat as well. Think, what vitamin C source in a fruit or vegetable can I add to this meat? A lot of people don't realize that you need vitamin C, and it doesn't happen overnight. People think like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this, for a couple of days and I don't feel any better. It typically, the other point I wanted to make for all of you is give yourself a good month. And you don't even make new red blood cells for 4 months. Every 4 months you make new red blood cells. And so you need the iron, the hemoglobin, is the protein that carries the oxygen in your red blood cells. So I want to say one other thing that most people don't think of is your small intestine and your GI tract, your digestive system needs to be in tip-top shape to absorb iron. And I couldn't make this up, Brannon, but what's amazing for the GI tract and the digestive system is a scoop of Gatatana every day. And you know what connects oxygen and hemoglobin that'll help all of this with your energy and elevating your oxygen levels is the glutathione swish. So there's some tips.
So both Gatatana and glutathione, they both go together very well.
They truly, truly do. So you've got to keep your gut healthy to absorb iron, and remember to add in that vitamin C.
Okay, so let's talk about, is it called ferritin? Check your ferritin, is that what it's called?
Right, exactly.
And that's what gauges how much iron's in your system, right?
Right, and the other point with the ferritin too is liver. Stored in your liver. So you've got to keep your liver functioning well. And
so alcohol, how is alcohol damaging your iron?
Yes. Honestly, no. I know all of you lovely Americans out there, my friends out there in Brannon's audience, I speak the truth. And I'm not saying, okay, maybe you have a glass of champagne because it's an anniversary, or it's New Year's Eve, or you have a lovely glass of wine because it's something special. think of alcohol like that. If you do consume it, I'm not here to be the judge and be perfect, but I'm here to tell you the facts. If you can just abstain from alcohol, and you know what's interesting?
And by the way, that's a growing trend. If you study it online, there are a lot of people that are ditching alcohol, and there's a lot of studies coming out about the connection between alcohol, Alzheimer's, dementia. Also, though, cancer. I know. And the connection between cancer and alcohol use. So it's interesting that there's a growing trend of young people ditching alcohol.
Thank goodness it's now super cool, to be sober. Isn't that great? I mean, it really is a wonderful trend. Alcohol is poison. It's toxic. That's why they say the individual becomes intoxicated, because it is literally toxic. And I do believe, I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Joe Rogan on his podcast said, he's like, oh my gosh, I think he said something, I'm paraphrasing, like, it's toxic. It's so as soon as I heard that, he's like, why am I going to drink this anymore?
But we also got, isn't he smoking pot? So doesn't he need to put that same thing on his pot?
I don't know about that. I don't know much about him other than the general,
Logan?
The general piece.
Isn't he a pot smoker? I think he is. I think he is. I'm just, if he's not, I apologize, but I thought he was.
No, I don't know much about him other than
maybe I better look that up. Did Joe Rogan smoke pot? Let's see.
I think he stopped drinking. I do think that. And again, no judgment, but it's very damaging to your liver. And guess what your liver needs? Glutathione.
Yeah.
Glutathione uses more, your liver uses more glutathione than any organ in the body.
He tries psychedelics, you think? He talks about it? Ahead of his return to consuming marijuana, Rogan did admit to being a little nervous. He worried the weed might hit him like a freight train with his tolerance being down. Okay, so this is an article out there. Okay, so that's 2017, so I don't know what the deal is now. But okay, well maybe he'll dump the weed if he's still taking it. Maybe he's not. He dumps the alcohol. I would encourage everybody. I don't think I have to worry about I don't think my audience is a weed audience. Do you, Logan? I don't think my people smoke weed. I don't think so. No, I don't think so either. Now, there may be a few people in my audience that like to have a beer or a glass of wine, but I'm telling you, I don't do any alcohol. Okay. First of all, I'm not tall enough to do alcohol. Okay. I have to try to keep my weight down because I'm not tall enough. Okay. So there's a very thin margin there. Number one. Number two, I hate the taste of it. And number three, we know what? Brannon likes being in charge and control. So, when you drink, you're not in charge, right?
No, absolutely. And it slows your metabolism. And I should say ladies and gentlemen out there too. But you really slow down your fat burning process for about 36 hours after you drink alcohol. So to catch up, say you had drinks on Friday night, so you got 36 hours, and you drinks on Saturday night, you have another 36 hours. I mean, it slows your metabolism down. It displaces calories. It's horrible for the brain. You're right. You're not in control. It's toxic chemicals, going in your body. So if you cannot drink, that's a great choice. And you're right, your liver has to filter medications, your liver has to filter alcohol, and you need your liver clean to store the ferritin so your iron levels are optimal. You've got to have a healthy liver, you have to have a healthy GI tract, and you've got to have a healthy small intestine, and specifically speaking about your GI tract. I mean, it's really important. There's all these other pieces that go to the puzzle of making sure you have optimal iron levels.
So you want to get your ferritin tested, which shows how much iron is in your system. And what should your number be? What is your obviously your doctor does a blood test, I guess, to get that number?
Right. And you could start 60 to 150 for women, and then your numbers between 75 and 140 for men. So you want to be in the normal range, and give yourself a good month. And I kid you all not. If you said, okay, Dr. Leonard, what do I need to do? My levels are off. My levels are low. I'm telling you, the vitamin C, the spinach, yes, meat, get organic meat. You don't have to eat it every day, but get, if you want to do organic meat, your dried fruits and your vitamin C, your spinach with the, maybe mandarin oranges, also gaditana and glutathione. Absolutely, it'll expedite the whole process because the gaditana is literally helping your gut. It's excellent for digestive disorders, and it's getting God's perfect nutrition inside your cells. And the glutathione is cleaning your cell membranes so the iron can be absorbed. And the glutathione is also supporting your liver. Your liver does about 400 functions, my friends, and it gets clogged with medication and alcohol and food, just like your cell membranes get clogged. That's the second step in my overall 5-step system for, optimal health and avoiding symptoms. And it is the function of your cell. And our cell membranes get clogged with food and fat and medications and things. So the glutathione cleans your cell membranes and also helps clean up your liver, which is a godsend.
Right.
Very important.
So keep your iron up, helps your hair, helps your thyroid, helps your ability to recover, your motivation, your hormone function, and keeps you from feeling cold, right?
Right.
Very important to keep your iron up, keeps your heart from fluttering. These are just a few things, right?
Yes. Exactly. You can get, it's called tachycardia. So you've got, it's a racing heart, and you're right. Your thyroid could be off. You could be losing hair. You could be irritable, moody. And some people, if you're female, and I'm all about, girl power over here, but a lot of people think that it's the menstrual cycle sometimes or PMS, and really it's your iron levels. And so you can do these simple tricks to elevate your iron and get your, good, healthy water, move your body, and add gaditana and glutathione, and there's your secret weapons to really help.
Well, I love it when we talk about how those all do fit so well together.
Marriage.
So we'll conclude with that. MelissaHowseBG.com, MelissaHowseBG.com. You can, and I would urge you to get a subscription, folks, so it shows up and you don't run out, because I think it's coming. Oh, I'm sorry. MelissaHowseGPA.com. Sorry, you can put up the lower third if you want. Thank you. MelissaHowseGPA.com. MelissaHowseGPA.com. And you want to get a subscription, because if you wait until you're about to run out, you're probably going to run out, because I think this is coming from up in the Northeast or something somewhere, right?
Yes, it is made and all put together wonderfully in the USA. So it is shipped from Northwest. It's shipped from Idaho.
Oh,
actually.
Idaho. Okay. I'm on the wrong side of the country. So Idaho. I knew it was one of these directions way out, because my wife's like, we have to have the subscription, because if we are close to running out by the time I order it, we're out, because it comes from so far away. So it's...
Well, it's grown off the coast of Spain in beautifully filtered ocean water, real ocean water. Most phytoplankton isn't grown in real ocean water, and it goes through a pharmaceutical grade filtration system. And all it is sunshine and the heirloom seed, like God made it. And then it gets dried into the powder and sent to the facility.
And I bet you they're not storing a bunch of it in advance. I bet you it's pretty fresh, right?
Absolutely. Yes, it is. They grow the biomass over in the beautiful, beautiful waters off the coast of Spain, because they're really pristine waters over there, and it's still filtered, even though it's pristine waters. And then it's sent over to the United States, and then it's stored in the warehouses in Idaho and shipped right to you. But I'll share with you too, if you're not feeling well or you're feeling under the weather, you can take like 4 scoops a day, 5 scoops a day. And I'll say this very full of compliance here. If health is your number one priority, all of a sudden you go to the doctor and everything else in your life stops and health is number one, you can take 10 scoops of gaditana a day.
So if you go to the doctor and you get he walks in the room and gives you the horrific report nobody wants to hear, you can do 5 scoops in the morning and 5 scoops at night.
Absolutely. And we're not making any claims, that we know hundreds of thousands of people took it in Canada for 12 years, and we're not naming any diseases or any claims at all. But yes, you can do 5 and 5, 5 level scoops of the Gatatana 10 minutes before breakfast, 10 minutes before lunch, or 10 minutes before lunch, 10 minutes before dinner. Absolutely. People ask me, they send me lovely emails too. You can, like your beautiful dog, Dolly, people are like, can I
Dolly,
give a scoop to my dog every day?
Yes,
can I give
a scoop
to
every
my
day.
cat every day? Yes.
Yes.
This is food.
Yep.
So you can give a half a scoop or scoop to your dog every single day. Look at that gorgeous.
Isn't she beautiful?
I hate to tell you, there's the star of the show right there.
There she is. There she is. She's a good girl. You get Gatatana every day, don't you? Yep.
She's
you get
a beauty.
Yes, you do. You get Gatatana every day. And you know what? Look, she's over a year old. Look how white her teeth are.
Oh, I'm telling you,
But
it's getting God's nutrition.
But did you know that this phytoplankton I'm reading eats off the junk on their teeth?
It's amazing for your teeth, for your gut, for your brain. I mean, I could tell you stories after stories. You know, my mom had an issue in her brain a year ago in May, and the only other thing I gave her was the Gatatana, and I got her personality back in days.
Wow.
It really helps behavior too.
Good. Does it help your behavior, Dolly? Why are you giving me that look?
She's the princess here.
She is. I actually said to my wife the other night, we should have named her Princess or Queenie, because she gets treated like the princess or the queenie. She's
Beautiful.
spoiled.
She'll live a long, healthy life, because usually bigger dogs live less years, but it helps them.
That's what we're going for. I'm trying to get a lab to live past 10 years old. You know, that's the oldest I've ever had one. Last one was 8.5 years. One before that was 4 years. She had seizures.
Oh.
So the breeder got his lines too close, he said. He gave the money back, but that didn't fix the problem. So the last one, the one before that was 4 years. The last one, 8.5 years. So we're trying to get Dolly to live a good 12, 15 years, right, Dolly?
10, 15, right.
Yep, exactly. Melissa Howse, GPA.com, and then Inspired by Wellness is Dr. Lana. As always, thank you for your help.
Oh, absolutely. A pleasure to be here. God bless everyone. See you next time.
Keep your iron up, folks. Keep your iron levels up. And this is where Gatatana and glutathione come in, all right? So Melissa Howse, GPA.com. Joining me now live from Israel is Dr. Rob Lindstedt. Are the asteroids, the meteorites, are they already on their way? Or what the Bible talks about in Revelation, the book of Revelation? Talks about hail falling on the earth, meteorites. Are they already on their way? That's a good question. You may say that's an odd question. But did you know that also in the book of Job, Job chapter 38, verse 22, look at this. Have you entered the storehouses of the snow or seen the storehouses of the hail? Verse 23. Which I reserve for times of trouble, for days of war and battle. Wow. Here's the question, folks. Does God already have a storehouse of hail? Are the fault lines in the earth already cracking and moving for massive earthquakes? Because the Bible speaks about earthquakes like this world has never seen. You know, we've got all these judgments that are happening in the book of Revelation, your trumpet judgments. And then it really ramps up with your bowl judgments. Really ramps up. We just finished that up on Sunday nights on Revelation chapter 16. Earthquakes like this world has never seen. Is the ground underneath us already shifting? Because scientists are studying earthquakes and are quite alarmed. And they're even now talking about fault lines that they say have been ignored, some of them here in the U.S. There are scientists, like here's the New York Post. The New York Post. This is a new article last week, May 28th, 2025. 3 city-killing asteroids could strike Earth within weeks, generating 1 million times more energy than Hiroshima, that atomic bomb. This is not the only one. We've got quite a few articles like this. Here's the one about scientists now monitoring 7 overlooked fault lines across the U.S. Here's another one. May 26, 2025, NASA monitoring trio of Howse-sized asteroids skimming Earth at hypersonic speed. How about some that are still far out? Has God already released some of these asteroids? Has he already started to let the tectonic plates shift to prepare for the things that are discussed in the Bible? Does he already have a storehouse of hail per Job 38, verse 22 and 23? Is the stage being set in more ways than most of us know? Even those of us who study this full time pretty much. Is the stage being set in the Middle East? Is the stage being set economically, militarily, spiritually? With the rise of anti-Semitism, the hatred of Christianity and Christians, the rise of persecution of many Jews, many Christians on a global scale. Many people are losing faith in their governments. They're looking for an answer, a leader, someone that will step forward and actually solve the world's problems. Is the stage being set for a one world leader? The increasing interest in UFOs by members of Congress holding committee meetings on it and hearings. A white paper released by the Pentagon with a scientist out of Harvard about UFOs. The Bible speaks an awful lot in Revelation about these entities that come on the earth that I think are demons. But could that be used to UFOs, extraterrestrials be used as a way to describe that, what's going on? Or the removal, if you believe in a pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib, whatever you believe in there, about the removal of Christians from the face of the earth, will UFOs be used as a cover that these were the negative people? It just seems like so much is happening to set the stage for what's coming. But do we notice? Joining me now from Israel tonight, live, Dr. Rob Lindstedt. Dr. Lindstedt, welcome back to the broadcast. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, my pleasure to be with you.
What do you make of my opening monologue here?
Well, the Bible certainly talks about the tribulation time is going to have disasters like we've never seen. And you can almost divide it into three areas. And I say three areas because there's 21 judgments. There's seals that are broken. And then it seems like God comes back and he intensifies them with the trumpets. And then things really get bad when he pours the bowls out. And so it's like there's a warning that God has given to us. I think I'm concerned, the increase in earthquakes, it's not something that you'd say is natural. It's unnatural, and but it's predictable. And so these scientists, I mean, these aren't God-fearing people. These are scientists, and they're watching scientific data. I think another thing that we can add to that whole mix is the weather manipulation. Do you remember? Sorry to do that to you. I'm suffering from over talking today and weather and hay fever.
I understand.
But remember, a few years ago, they were talking about how that because of cows, that we're ruining the environment. Drinking coffee, we're messing up the environment. We're going to have an app that's going to be a carbon counter. This is crazy. That the weather modifications from cows, coffee, that stuff, it's nothing compared to what are they doing with weather? More and more evidence shows that they are actually targeting cities, regions of the country to bring about severe weather. They're changing magnetic fields. And so the more they ignore this, the more I think, okay, there's probably some truth to it. So look at all the things that are, I'm going to say, just going almost haywire. We've got earthquakes like we've never seen before. We've got flooding, weather manipulation like we've never seen before. We've got, everything is out of control. When you look at I'm going to say the Earth data, the Earth health, it's not very healthy. And now we add in a political mix. And to me, what it says is this would be a perfect way to get the world to say, we really need someone to solve problems. So who are they going to go to? They're going to go to an antichrist. This guy's going to pretend like he's got the solution to problems, scientifically, earth-wise, weather-wise. Man, you know, you can't play games with God when it comes to these earthquakes. They're devastating. You can't play games with God when it comes to these tornadoes. They're taking hundreds of lives. So we got to be careful, because God's running out of time and patience with us.
Indeed, He is. What do you make of Revelation chapter 11, verse 19? This is at the seventh trumpet judgment. And the temple of God, which is in heaven, was opened, and the ark of his covenant appeared in his temple. And there was flashes of lightning and sounds of pearls of thunder and an earthquake and a great hail storm. And I just read, Dr. Lindstedt, from Job chapter 38, verse 22. Have you entered the storehouses of the snow or seen the storehouses of the hail, which I have reserved for times of trouble, for the days of war and battle? Do you think that some of these things that are being discussed in Revelation, that they're already, the stage is being set even naturally? Meteorites, asteroids, hailstorms, plagues, pandemics, as we have all these level 4 bioweapon laboratories around the world, many of them that are leaking. Yeah, this week we had 2 Chinese CCP folks arrested in Michigan. And the FBI says they're loyal to the CCP, and they were bringing in a pathogen that is known as a biological weapon against crops, particularly wheat. Apparently the CCP wants to destroy our food supply. Do you think many of these things, the plagues, the bioweapons, the hail, the meteorites, the asteroids they're worried about, the earthquake fault lines, is this all setting the stage? Is the earth already starting to be prepared and groaning for the tribulation that's about to unfold once I think the church is removed?
Well, I've not considered that passage in Job 38 before, but you know, when you read it, it makes perfect sense, because you know, God has warned us that judgment's coming. He's told us that these judgments are going to be so severe that if the days were short, no flesh would be saved. I think we're looking at that because we're a political mess. I think we're an economic mess, and now we're an environmental mess. We're perfectly set up for an antichrist.
Well, speaking of that, what are the people in Israel saying about Benjamin Netanyahu? What are they saying about their own government? What are they saying about Donald Trump? What is the confidence and the ability do they have in the wherewithal of Netanyahu and Trump to deal with the threats against Israel and to deal with Iran? Not to mention, you've been there now while rockets are being shot in from Syria. What is the temperature of the Israeli people concerning their own leader and our leader here in America?
I think they've lost confidence in them. They were optimistic that, you know, because Netanyahu talked a big talk, Trump talked a big talk. It sounded like, okay, we're gonna make it so that they've got to give back the hostages. We're going to make it so they have to accept some kind of a settlement. Nothing's happened. They keep drawing a line, and sorry,
that's all right.
And people keep crossing that line. So they've lost hope. They thought Trump was going to make a kind of be an enforcer. Now they say, was he bought by the people of the Arab countries? Because it looks like it's more about investments. It looks like it's more about let's make economic deals than it is about bringing home hostages and bringing freedom to the forefront.
Mm. Well, and look at this headline today out of the Jerusalem Post. U.S. proposes interim step in Iran nuclear talks, allowing some uranium enrichment. Boy, I'll tell you something. As I said on radio today, Iran has played one administration after another, and they just keep buying time and buying time and buying time. And I'm not buying this idea that they're this close to getting the nuclear weapon. I think they have multiple bombs already. The question is how many? I'm not buying that they don't have a method for delivery. I think they have plenty of missiles that they can have purchased from Russia or China, or more likely North Korea. But boy, they have just played one administration and slow walk this while they just keep adding. And now the U.S. is proposing an interim step that allows them to develop more enrichment, uranium enrichment. Is this what you're talking about?
Yeah, it's foolish. Everyone knows it's foolish. The only ones being fooled are the leaders. I just felt like Trump was going to be stronger on this, but he's fallen right into it. The truth is, he talked about, okay, we're going to do something horrible. They've passed it so many times. The headlines are saying 60% enrichment, enough for 10 bombs. You only need enough for one. The people of Israel are disgusted because they say, is there really a leader in the world that can deliver? Well, I'm afraid that sets the stage for an Antichrist because he tricks them. He says, yeah, I'm going to deliver, and it's going to look like he can because they've given up hope on their government. They're now giving up hope on Trump. Why? The wars continue. Iran's getting stronger, not weaker. And the hostages aren't returned. Government is at an all-time low in terms of delivery to people for what they're elected for.
Tell me about what is happening to the IDF over there and the war going on between the government and the Orthodox Jews who are conscientious objectors. They don't go off to war. Their kids don't belong to the IDF. They're not forced to join the IDF for a period of time like everybody else is. What is happening to your supply of warfighters and your internal tension among Israelis themselves, between the ones going off to war, whose kids are going to war, versus the Orthodox who have the majority of the children whose kids are exempt? Tell me about that.
Well, they're very frustrated, and here's what they say. It's easy to say, let's do war. But if your kids never have to serve, you're never threatened with, I'm going to lose one of my kids. Some of these men have been fighting 600 days. They've lost their jobs. Their job says, we can't continue to hold your work. Some have come back and said, you know what? I'm so mentally, physically drained from the war. I can't perform at the level I did before. So some of them have been arrested. Some are being in lawsuits. I'm hurting for them because they say we can't continue this. This war is drug out for 600 days, and the truth is we need a leader. Where is a leader in the world? Is it in our country, Israel? Is it America? Is it someone's got to be a leader to say, let's finish this whole process?
Could Benjamin Netanyahu get himself reelected again if there were elections held right now?
Not a chance. Not a chance. They had to put together a coalition, and the coalition is falling apart.
Let's go to this video footage that's come out. Watch this, folks. Here we go. Well, get it to play here. Here we go.
This morning, the fallout from the Boulder, Colorado firebombing attack. The wife and 5 children of suspect Mohammed Sabri Soliman now in ICE custody, being processed for expedited deportation.
Mohammed's despicable actions will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But we're also investigating to what extent his family knew about this horrific attack.
Chilling video shows what appears to be the moment the suspect threw a Molotov cocktail into a peaceful group of Jewish demonstrators.
I want to show that again, folks. Watch him walk up and do that.
Setting innocent demonstrators into a peaceful group of Jewish demonstrators.
Wow.
Setting innocent people and later himself on fire, allegedly yelling "Free Palestine" at the crowd and injuring a dozen people before he was taken into custody. Authorities saying they recovered a weed sprayer backpack containing flammable liquid along with 16 unused Molotov cocktails. Soliman is an Egyptian national and was allegedly in the country illegally after overstaying his tourist visa. ABC News has learned he appeared to record pro-terror messages just hours before. Among those injured in the attack, at least one of them is still in the hospital in serious condition. Rabbi Mark Soloway knows several of the victims, one of them an 88-year-old woman who previously survived the Holocaust.
She's an incredibly resilient person who is horrified that in her lifetime she can see a resurgence of anti-Semitism, something that she and her family survived.
And that Rabbi also talked about the grief and the fury of having Jewish people set on fire in the streets of America in 2025. The suspect is due back in court tomorrow, George.
What are they saying in Israel about this, Dr. Woods? Dr. Lindstedt?
Well, they're so disappointed. They thought they had a friend in America, but they say, you know what? We're being hated around the world. We don't initiate these problems, but we're the ones that are hated for these problems. They talk continually about France. They say France is gone. I have a couple of people with me from the United Kingdom. They say I haven't been in the United Kingdom for several years. They say if you'd come, you wouldn't recognize it. They said we don't recognize our country. The people of Israel say, you know what? The world is insane. Why are they picking on us? They say, what have we done? And they point to the Coloradans and say, what have we done? People can yell and scream about all kinds of things. They're not even arrested. And we have a peaceful demonstration. We're killed and nobody cares. It's almost like it's our fault that we were victims. And what's our crime? And their crime is they were born Jewish. The world's out of control. And I think it's God's way of getting our attention. Sooner or later, we got to come to grips with the fact that the fallen nature of man, and I think the activity the Bible speaks of in Ephesians, spiritual activity in high places, we're watching that gain ground against sanity and I'd say common sense. It's gone.
It's gone. There was I played it on radio today. Let me see if I can find it again. This was NYPD. They, here we go. Here it is. Here we go. Look at this. NYPD orders Jews to move rather than Jew haters harassing them. So you say, we're the ones being arrested, and yet the people that are doing all this don't. I can't play the video, the audio. So look, he pulls his pants down. What you're about to see are some Orthodox Jews sitting on a bench. But the language is so bad at these Jews, what they're saying to them. Now the NYPD is going to come along and tell the Jews that you're the ones that need to get up and go on home instead of arresting these people that I think are involved in assault. And I explained to my radio audience today, for those who don't know, assault and battery. Battery is when you put your hands on somebody. Assault can be when you get up in their face or make threats against them to make them fearful for their safety or life. And there are the Jews just sitting there peacefully on a park bench. And yet they're told, go get out of here. And nothing happens to these people, and this is exactly what you're talking about. You didn't know I was going to play this, did you?
No. I really do. I think the human race is out of control. How did we lose control? Well, we left a standard.
Yep.
And the standard's got to be God's word. The only chance of sanity was having a standard. God's word was that standard. We've left that standard. We've left every standard. The heroes today are the people who are the vilest and the crudest. The people being arrested are the victims. How is this turned around so quickly? Well, I think it's the spirit of Antichrist. And so now let's say that with all this violence taking place, with all this failure and hatred of Jews, so now let's say a leader comes to the forefront. He says, okay, guess what? I'm really on your side. I can get them to allow you to accept you. I'll even guarantee you for 7 years the chance to have religious freedom, including sacrifice. You know what? They would jump on it tonight.
Wow.
And the Bible says he's going to do that. Perfect setup, because 3.5 years down the road, he's going to say, you know what? I'm just like them. I lied to you. I tricked you. You can only worship me. And so I've been here. Several people have been arrested, Jewish people going up to Temple Mount trying to begin sacrifices. So these are zealots. They do it knowing that they're going to get arrested. They do it because they say sooner or later, one of us is going to do a sacrifice up there. It's going to bring attention. It's going to bring everyone on our side. No, it's just dividing things more and more.
Wow.
And we live in a fragmented world. And here's the thing. No one has any sense of right or wrong. That's why when we left standards, biblical standards of right and wrong, common sense standards, we put things in a tailspin.
Talk about standards and right and wrong. We let this Muslim dude through the Biden regime come into America, overstay his visa. He should have never been here. Apparently, he's tied right back to Muslim Brotherhood, which, gave birth to Hamas in 1987. I want people to read this, because they don't speak Arabic, unless you do, guys in the audience, like Usama Dakdok. Otherwise, read the subtitles of what this terrorist who did the flame-throwing stuff in Boulder, look what he said. His videos. Allah is greater than anything, he says. Allah is greater than the Zionists. Allah is greater than America. Allah is greater than the F-35 planes or anything else. So why do we fear those who are inferior to Allah rather than fear Allah himself? He goes on, if I told my wife and son every day to do something, but they didn't do it, would I be angry? Maybe I would divorce my wife. Maybe I would kick my son out of home. Then what about Allah, who says to us every day dozens of times, Allah Akbar?
Well,
do not forget Allah Akbar. Do not forget that Allah is greater than everything. That's what he's saying here, folks. Now look what he goes on to say. Not the Zionist, America, Britain, France, or Germany. Only Allah has the right to be feared. I say to my mother, my wife, my children, my brothers, my people, I attest before Allah and before you that Allah, his messenger, and jihad for Allah's sake are more beloved to me than you and the whole world are. Wow. So jihad is more important to him than his wife and children. There you go. And this is now spread all over the UK, all over Germany, all over France, all over America. I just saw a video on social media today in Minneapolis, a Somali school graduation. If they didn't tell me they were in Minnesota, I would have thought they were in Somalia. I mean, they've even changed the Minnesota flag up there to look like the Somali flag. You talk about no common sense, no standards. We have allowed the enemies of our republic to come in here. And now I think our days as a nation are numbered. I really do. I don't want to be pessimistic, but I can see all the signs of how a nation commits suicide, and we're doing it.
Well, this is a sad day. And, I remember starting Sunrise because I felt like the public schools, there was nothing patriotic. I saw the trend, 30, 40 years ago, that if you were patriotic, they almost put you down. If you suggested pledging the flag, they put you down. So there was nothing spiritual. There was nothing biblical. There wasn't even good academics. We have paid an incredible price. And I look at what's taking place. The people in the United Kingdom say our country is ruined. Our heritage is gone. Look at France. Who in the world would want to move to France? The leader claims he's going to be the next great world power. He's slapped by his wife. He's disrespected by his country. He's got mob scenes going on. It's not just France. It's the whole world. The whole world is in this chaotic form.
And now you got France. Look at this. Washington warns the UK and France against recognizing a Palestinian statehood.
Yeah. Can you believe that the UN is pushing this, and the UK is sending money to help sponsor this thing? The common sense is out the door.
And now the Jews are being told, you better arm yourself. Time to arm yourself Zionist organization calls on U.S. Jews. Time to arm yourself.
Well,
I think a bunch of Jews have been told in France, get out of there. Get to Israel. Get out of France. Get to Israel. You can't live we can't safely reside in France anymore. And we heard about that poor lady who was one of the victims of the firebombing in Boulder. She was an 88-year-old survivor of the Holocaust.
Wow, what a tragedy. Well, I can understand why God's patience is running out. God's patience ran out with the people of Noah's day. God's patience ran out with the people of Lot's day. Why would it be any different as we watch ourselves move further from God? With all God's warnings, we're moving further away from him. And with all the support of God's word saying, support the Jews, we're watching even that support erode.
Yeah. We're not saying you have to support everything the Israeli government ever does, but the Jewish people and their right to live in America, to live in the UK. And they can't even go out on a Sunday afternoon and show their desire for Jewish hostages to be released without being set on fire. Now let's go back over to Israel where you're at tonight. I don't know if they're showing this on the media over there, but here are a bunch of the Hamas guys in Gaza. They are taking Gazans who took some of the UN food, the aid, which I guess the Hamas grabs it up and Hamas then sells it. And these guys took some of the food and now they're having thief spray painted on them, I guess in Arabic. And they're about to release these guys to the mob. Some of them have already been put in cages. They've been deprived of food. And now they've been let out, hands tied, thief sprayed on them. The beating starts. And then they let the mobs get at them. Now, this is Hamas doing this to the people of Gaza. The mainstream media in America, from everything I can tell, like the New York Post just picked it up, thankfully. But the mainstream media, from everything I'm being told and watching and seeing, is not reporting this. They're blaming Israel. They're saying Israel fired and killed a bunch of the people when the aid was being delivered. This was Hamas, Dr. Lindstedt.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean,
is this being reported in Israel?
No. Now, you got to remember that we were out doing tours and so like that. So I just came back in a few minutes ago. It was dark by the time I got back in. So I haven't watched as much news as I normally watch. But let me tell you, I have not seen any of that footage on television here.
Well, here's another one. Yeah, this stuff is it's again, I can see why the folks in Israel are thinking, wait a minute, what's going on? I thought Netanyahu and Trump were going to fix some of these things. Wow.
Yeah, they're losing faith in government, and probably they're well. The Bible says the world's going to turn against them because I think what's going to happen, they're going to retaliate on their own.
So you think they're going to eventually go after Iran on their own?
Yeah, I think they're going to have to because they're so small that they can't afford. Their best defense is an offense.
Are you hearing any time frame? Any thoughts as to whether that's next month, this year, next year?
No, not time frames. At this point, it's just disappointment. They thought they had a friend in their own government. They don't. They say they change. They change every day. They thought they had a friend in Trump, and now they say Trump just wants to make deals. They say he's more interested in making a deal. He likes to talk about peace, but he said there's still no real plan that they're getting a commitment from anybody. And so they go back and say, so what that says is sooner or later, we've got to retaliate. And how are they going to retaliate? Well, I can tell you this, it won't be a soft retaliation, and it'll make the world go against Israel again.
And we just saw rockets shot from Syria into Israel. What are they saying about President Trump going to the Arab world and those girls all dancing and then shaking hands with the new president of Syria? And now you got rockets shooting in there from Israel, or from Syria into Israel. What are they saying about that?
I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Well, they're very disappointed because they really felt like the United States was behind them. They thought Trump was the best thing that ever happened. And then all of a sudden, it seemed like the whole deal of solving the hostage crisis, of solving the situation in Gaza, now is on the back burner, because what we're trying to do, we need, it looks like investments. You know, this nation is going to give $500 billion. This nation is going to give a trillion to do this or that. But promising money doesn't fix the problem. Hamas is a terrorist organization, regardless of how much money the other Arab nations invest in America. That's not stopping the problem.
Well, it seems as though the urgency has become about our financial collapse. The urgency has become about our imminent financial collapse versus what I think is an imminent massive terrorist attack in America. I could be 100% wrong, Dr. Lindstedt, as we wrap here, but I believe that something like 9/11 or worse, something like October 7th in Israel is coming to America. And while we're all worried about the financial issues, and I know those are kitchen table issues that impact polls and midterm elections coming up and all that, but while there's a lot of focus on shoring up our economy, a lot of distraction, that is, to the existential threat of all the terrorist groups that are here in the U.S. So in some sense, what I'm saying about my own country and your country is what the Israelis are saying about their country. We're worried about the existential threats of survival, and they're working on economic deals. We're worried about the existential threat within our own country, and the emphasis is financial deals. So the financial crisis that our country has put itself in after so many, basically since 1913, is become such a massive distraction that our enemies are using that against us. Closing comment?
Well, they mention the students, and they say, we can't believe that there were students that essentially blackmailed the United States. They say, and if you're worried about that, they say, we know that there's other terrorists there. It's not a guess. We know there's other terrorists. So you've let terrorists in on student visas. You've let them in. They're doing all kinds of testing. They look like they think they got approval to do some testing at, I think it was Michigan University. I don't know that that's true, but there's no doubt that they were working together. So they say the infiltration of the terrorists into America, whether it's through spies, whether it's through people making money, they said America has lost its power, its steam, and now they've lost their face because they keep promising help and they never deliver.
Well, here it is. New York Post. The New York Post is reporting that Columbia protester and self-proclaimed Jew hater had direct links to Hamas terror cells, disturbing phone records reveal. Dr. Lindstedt, there are, I believe, these students that have come into our country that are tied to terror cells. They've come in as students, but they're here as terror cells in the U.S. That's what you're saying. That's what you're saying. The people in Israel on the ground are telling you about about your own country.
Yep, that's exactly right. They say we made huge mistakes, and they're not sure anyone knows how to fix it because we have so many that have wedged their way into our country, either by the open border or by invitation through these so-called universities.
Are they worried that America may not be around, or that America will be in its own, death throes, that we can't even do anything about helping them in any way? Are they worried about America being brought down to the point that they don't have America as an ally anymore because we are so weakened with a mortal wound ourselves.
Yeah, they say America now appears as weaker than anyone ever suspected because they can't even protect their own borders. They can't protect their own citizens. They just feel like they've got to go it alone. They've got to do it by themselves. And I think that's what's going to bring the world to hate them, because I think they might use massive force to do it.
Which could then kick off World War III, and the Jews will be blamed for kicking off World War III.
Yep, that's exactly right. The whole world will turn against them. Yep.
BibleTipNow.org, BibleTipNow.org. Dr. Lindstedt in Israel. We'll pray for your health, the hay fever, the allergies, that you can get some sleep tonight. And we thank you for making time for us, Dr. Lindstedt.
Glad to do it. Have a good day.
BibleTipNow.org, BibleTipNow.org. We'll be right back after this break. We live in uncertain times. In fact, we live at a time when our own governments all over the world are warning us that there could be big problems with our power grid. World War III seems to be right on the horizon. Let me ask you this. Do you have a satellite phone? Should communications go down with cell towers? Do you have a satellite phone to get a hold of that college student or your spouse who travels, whatever it might be, to get a hold of your senior adult parents? We have satellite phones at worldviewtalk.com, and you get the satellite phone for free when you sign up for their very reasonable payment programs for the service. Sign up for the service with a reasonable contract, get the satellite phone for free. Worldviewtalk.com. You'll also find they have, well, what I now have, which is a solar generator. Yeah, I have a gas generator, an LP propane generator, but what if that goes down? I want to back up to my backup. So I now have a solar generator as well. You'll find them at worldviewtalk.com. Check it out today, worldviewtalk.com. Joining me now are Chad and Katie out of the Ozarks, Lake of the Ozarks. They've been on the program several times, but haven't been on recently. We thought it was time to bring them back. They have a very special clinic. They're also very devout Christians. I know them very well. They're good friends of ours, and they've been in our studio here a few times as well. They have a clinic at Lake of the Ozarks. Of course, we've had our conference at Lake of the Ozarks. They've exhibited at our conference. They've helped many of our viewers over the years, helping some of them get off of alcohol, some of them get off of painkillers, opioids, other things. And we have gotten so many wonderful testimonies from our viewers who said, thank you for introducing us to Chad and Katie, who helped me or my spouse or my child with a serious addiction problem. In some cases, it wasn't somebody, again, that was abusing alcohol, although that may be the case. It was someone who had to go have a back surgery or some kind of surgery and then got addicted to the painkillers that we all know about, the opioid addiction. And so we have so many people that have reached out to us over the time that we introduced them to Chad and Katie, thanking us for that. And well, we thought it was time to bring them back on because we want to help families. And a lot of families are struggling. It's a private struggle. People don't generally jump up on the rooftop and announce their problems, but they are looking for some help. Somebody that's been there, done that, and has a solution and can hold their hand, the mom, the dad, the spouse, as they go through helping that loved one. And Chad and Katie are people that have done that, and they join us again tonight. Chad and Katie, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us. Great to have you with us. Let's remind our audience, just for everybody to know, you guys have a clinic that you started. Chad has a very successful career as a businessman, and you've taken your abilities as a businessman and then started a clinic because you were helped by this same thing. Who wants to tell that story?
Brannon, I mean, you know my story, but it's something that started many years ago, where it was kind of an innocent thing where I'd have a drink every once in a while. But the longer and longer I did it, it just started taking more and more of my time, more and more of my life, where I started thinking about it, waking up and thinking about, okay, how long till I can start drinking? What do I need to get done till I can start drinking? It's something that took my life in a fast spiral downhill.
And your wife, Katie, you ended up finding something. You were trying to help him for a long time. And you finally found something, you researched it, and you said, you're getting in the car, you had to drive 11 hours to go to a clinic that offered a special brain, really going to the issue of the brain. What was it? And because you guys now offer it in your clinic, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, Chad was kind of skeptical, but yes, we had a friend tell us he was very worried about Chad. And I've always liked kind of natural things. And so it made sense to me. And we both were at a place where like, well, we have to do something different. What Chad had been trying up to that point was not working. And so we decided to hang our hopes on this particular treatment. And we did. We got in the car and we drove, 11 hours or what have you. And the good news, the hopeful news for people out there, that is if you've tried and you haven't been successful in your efforts to get sober or to stop using a medication or a drug, there is hope that it can be changed.
And Brannon, you have to, I'm just was going to add that I didn't believe anything, what Katie was trying to tell me. It was just something to me. When you face an addiction, a lot of people truly do want to quit, but in their mind, if you knew the battle that went on every day, and I had tried other things and it wasn't successful. So I was very skeptical, but I wanted to believe something could change that, but I didn't really think it could.
And so you now offer this at your clinic, which is very centrally located in the U.S., Lake of the Ozarks. We've held our national conference for several years. So it's an easy drive, centrally located for a lot of people, or fly into Kansas City and drive down, or fly into Springfield and drive up. What is it? What it's a product that does what?
Yeah. So basically what we're doing is we're replenishing natural things by IV to increase both the health of the body as well as the brain. So it's vitamins, antioxidants, and our brain restoration formula.
So
and
it's a brain restoration formula. We say it again,
Yes.
a brain restoration formula, because once you get to a certain level of addiction, whether it's pills or alcohol, the brain gets rewired, right?
Yes, there's physiological changes that happen.
So the person who doesn't want to do it can't turn off the craving for it. So they need some kind of brain restoration that goes in and stops those pathways and eliminates the craving, which is what this brain restoration formula does. It literally takes away the craving, correct?
Yes.
Absolutely. And that was my struggle, Brannon, because I mean, literally everywhere I would go, that was my constant thought of, am I going to quit today? Am I going to only drink a little bit today? And it was those cravings that every single day, no matter what I was doing, was making me have that drink.
And after sitting on this IV for how many days? So many days.
Yeah, everybody's different, but an average, depending on your addiction, depending on what substances you're on, most of our treatments are anywhere from 10 to 14 days.
10 to 14 days. And so that means you're sitting in a room, a private room with a TV, a Roku. You can watch us. I think you've actually had some of our people there, and they're reared back in their recliner with their IV for 10, 14 days, watching me, and you're walking in and out going, I know that dude. That's my friend. That's my friend. Yep. And so some of your clients have come from us, and they just sit there and what?
I was going to say, you bet. Yeah, we've definitely had folks that are your listeners.
And what kind of success have they had?
We're not immune.
What kind of success have they had?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we've had calls from all across the country, people in Idaho, Minnesota, and so forth. And when they go home, that things are different. They feel better than they felt in a long time. They are free from cravings. They can't believe how great they feel. And that's our message of hope, is that it can be different. If you haven't been successful before, maybe this was the missing piece.
And how long has it been for you, Chad? 11 years or something?
10 years.
10 years?
Yeah, 10 years. And again, very skeptical, didn't think it was going to work. And to the point where we didn't even tell our kids we were going because I was so upset every time I told them I was going to quit, and it would only last a week or a few days. And so when Katie and I went to this trip, I'm like, I'm not going to tell them because I don't want to let them down again. And it was about a year later, I looked at Katie and I'm like, why don't people know about this?
Yeah. And so you guys took your business skills as a businessman and started the clinic, and you guys are pretty busy. I know that. If people want to find out more, I guess they just call you. They go to newspringwellnesscenter.com or call you and just say, hey, I heard about you on Brannon House Live and I want to know more. Because I'm guessing it takes a conversation. People don't just rush in there next week. It's a process, right?
It is a process, and we have you fill out a couple of forms that you can fill out on your phone because most of our patients come from outside the area. So the doctor wants to just get a little bit background to understand what substances you've been on currently or in the past, because a lot of people have been on several different things. Even if you have been on a substance but don't take it any longer, our doctor still wants to know that because that's
so you have an MD. You have an MD you work with.
We do.
And you have a couple RNs there as well, right?
Oh, yeah. We have a terrific team.
You have one of them. You have one of them that has attended my conferences who I really like.
Oh, a couple of them. Crystal. Yep. She's still there.
They're great people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they really are.
They've come to some of our world.
Brannon, it's really neat for people that have lost hope, because people who suffer from addictions, most of them do want to quit. They just don't think it's possible because they've tried other things.
So they've tried different things, and so your success rate is pretty high, right?
It really is. It's a lot higher than traditional standard rehabs that you'll see out there, and
that's because the rehabs, they do a lot of talking at you, but they don't take away the physiological cravings. It's like they don't. All the talking won't rewire the brain back to where you have no cravings. Whereas this brain restoration formula literally takes care of this wiring, this new, what the drugs have done that caused a constant craving. This brain restoration formula heals that, so the cravings quit, right?
We actually had a nurse that was one of my nurses when we went there, and she had remained sober for a couple of years prior to taking this job. And she was in our room talking with Katie and I, and she's like, I remained sober, but it was still a battle every single day. And until I did this treatment, I suffered, or I finally knew what true freedom was.
Yeah, she said it changed the quality of her sobriety. And I was like, whoa, that really means something. She wasn't no longer hanging on, just for another day, but she really kind of reached that recovery point.
So not that we encourage people to do this per se, but Chad, you can walk into a restaurant where people are drinking and you don't have a craving anymore.
Not at all. My friends that I golf with, they'll have a couple of beers or a couple of drinks, and it doesn't affect me at all.
Whereas that used to not be the case, right?
No, not at all. And you have to understand.
Wait a minute. It did used to be the case where you couldn't be around them drinking, right?
Exactly. I had to separate myself, isolate myself. And even when I did that, it was still difficult where I was drinking on alone. But you have to understand, my story is different than everybody's. I was to the point where, if I hadn't done something, I wouldn't be around much longer. And everybody's story is a little bit different. But with everybody we talk to, most of it comes back to that dependency on that substance that they can't seem to get free of.
Mm-hmm. And do you have spouses come in together?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he may suffer from alcohol. She may have gotten addicted to a painkiller, or they're addicted to the same thing or different things. And they finally say, we've had enough, let's go.
You bet.
We have. That's not the most common. Mostly it's one or the other, but we have had couples do treatment together as well.
It's generally one spouse bringing the other, or a parent bringing a child, or a parent bringing a grown child, or a parent bringing a college student.
Exactly.
How many college kids are you seeing?
We probably don't see as many young people. Right. Partially because sometimes it takes unfortunately, sometimes it takes a while before it hits home that somebody needs help.
Right.
So they might start in their early 20s, but may not seek help until they're in their later 20s, maybe after they're married, and having children or something.
How old is your average person coming to the clinic?
They're probably more in their 40s, 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them are successful business people. We see, particularly our male patients, we see a lot of people that are entrepreneurs. They're self-employed. They have their own businesses. There are bank presidents the face of addiction and alcoholism isn't always, the bum on the street corner. It is your executive. And the people that are self-employed, it is, I think, a particular thing in that they have such freedom over their schedules and a lack of accountability because they are the boss. And so forth. So we see a lot of folks like that are very successful.
What about follow-up? What about follow-up? Because Chad, you follow up with a lot.
Yeah, I do. I have great relationships with these folks because, it's basically our ministry now because it's a really great team because I understand what the person's that's suffering addictions going through, and Katie understands from the spouse perspective. And I keep in contact with everybody who's been through our center with text, with Bible verses, phone calls. It's just a really neat thing that, we've had in common and overtake.
And so you fix breakfast, lunch, a lot of that for the clients, right?
Yep. We serve them breakfast and lunch while they're there.
And then they go to either a hotel or Airbnb or something, come back in the next day.
Which we help arrange. Everything's outpatient. It's not like your standard rehab that you think of. It's a like you said, you get your own private room. We encourage loved ones to come because this is a recovery, not just for that person, but everybody involved.
So you might be talking to the spouse, Katie, where he's dealing right with the patient, talking about his own personal testimony and story and telling them, hey, here's what's going to happen. You're not going to feel much change the first 2-3 days. About day 5, going to be like a light went on, a cloud was lifted.
It's different with everybody, but yeah, traditionally it's day 5 or 6 that you really start feeling that hope. You start feeling, you know what, something's happening.
So you have an MD, you have RNs, and it's all IV and it's all natural.
Yes. And then we have other supporting kinds of things. The crux of that program, sure, is those IV nutrients, but we have a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. We do red light therapy. We do something called auricular therapy. Those are all natural things that there's protocols for, anxiety and things like that. Like a hyperbaric oxygen chamber, our bodies and our brains run on oxygen. So we have some other supporting kinds of things. So it really is a comprehensive program. And of course, we offer to start every day with prayer.
How many patients have you had come through there?
Oh my gosh.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
And you've only been open how many years?
7.
6 or 7.
Yeah, something like that.
Hundreds and hundreds. And you have a lot of them that have success.
Yes, we really do.
Would you say it's a 50% success rate or what?
I would say it's higher than that.
Really?
Like, the one thing that Katie always stresses and we stress, nobody can want it more than the person that's going through it. I know Katie wanted it bad for me. There's loved ones that want it bad for their sons and daughters. But until that person realizes, you know what, I need help and I'm willing to accept that help, nothing's impossible.
Well, we recommend you guys, and we got where we just didn't keep doing these interviews because we all got so busy, and we thought it's time to do it again because, again, there's so many people out there suffering. They don't know where to turn. It's a lonely situation, isn't it, Katie, right?
Oh my gosh, it is. I know when we were going through it, I wasn't talking to anybody about it. I'm fortunate in that I'm a Christian and I grew leaps and bounds in my relationship with the Lord during those times. However, boy, I don't know how people get through things without the Lord. And it is great. I love talking with the loved ones because for a lot of them, it's been a lonely place too. Mm-hmm. And we really try to take good care of them while they're here.
So if someone's watching tonight and they say, well, I need this, or my spouse needs this, or my child needs this, the first thing they should do is reach out to you at that number there, 573-693-1977, and start talking to Katie. And she can start giving you some hope as maybe a family member with a spouse or a family member with a grown child, and start that conversation on how you get the person to want to then talk maybe to Katie and then Chad, and then finally agree to fill out the forms, and then finally agree to come in. So I guess we would encourage the person who's trying to get the loved one there to start with just building that relationship with Katie. That's how we open the door, and then maybe Chad can eventually have a conversation with the individual that's going to come.
It's honestly not that hard of a process. We're more than willing to talk to people. I'm more than willing to talk to people who are suffering, just to explain my experience and my story with them, to know that they're not alone. And, once we get the forms filled out, it's pretty quick. It's a pretty quick process.
Wow. Okay, 573-693-1977 or newspringwellnesscenter.com, located at beautiful Lake of the Ozarks, where we have held our conference for so many years. Of course, we're moving up to the Memphis, outside of Memphis this year. But on top of getting help at a great clinic, they're in a beautiful environment too.
You bet. It can be a wellness retreat for.
And you don't have to have an addiction problem. People suffering with Alzheimer's or dementia or feeling that coming on benefit from this too, right?
Or simply, yes, people that are professionals, such as yourself, that they're like, well, not that I'm saying that you're old, Brannon, but yes, the toll of aging and chronic stress and so forth, it takes its toll.
So,
and so
what you're saying is some
CEOs
come in there who don't have any issue, but they come in there because they want to up their thinking, up their mind. They want to keep sharp.
You bet.
Exactly.
Yes. Brain fog from long COVID, just chronic stress, aging.
Wow.
They want to be as sharp as they can be. Their life or their profession demands it.
What if they're struggling with a health issue and they just want to just load up on, let's say, a vitamin C IV and all kinds of stuff like that, because they're thinking, I got a serious health issue and I just want to load up on all this natural stuff that my doctors don't want to give me. They can do that, right?
Oh, you bet. Yes, we definitely see people. We see cancer patients that are seeking things that are more natural to support their health, their wellness, their immune system.
That's the key. They're looking for something to boost that immune system, right?
You bet.
Because if the immune system's boosted, it can take some of these free radicals out on their own, can it?
That's my understanding. Of course, we have a medical director, but yes.
Right. We're not giving medical advice. They have a doctor and RNs on staff for that. All right. So there you go. 573-693-1977 or newspringwellnesscenter.com. All right, guys, we got to be getting you on again on a regular basis. And great having you with us tonight.
Nice seeing you, Brannon.
Thank you.
Chad and Katie checking in, newspringwellnesscenter.com. All right, folks, that's our broadcast. What a lineup we had tonight. Again, I challenge you to find a program like this. There are not a lot of them out there. And that's by design, folks, that we are different from everybody else. And there's so much happening in the news that we're not even getting all of it. There's so much that I had on my plate tonight to talk to you about I didn't get to because there's so much happening so fast. But we'll try to get to some more of it tomorrow. Don't forget, we're on radio each and every day as well. 1 p.m. Central, 2 Eastern, right here at worldviewtube.com for Worldview Radio, which is also TV. But again, if you appreciate what we're doing, would you go right now to worldviewfoundation.com and make a contribution? Would you set up an automatic contribution? Please consider doing that. Worldviewfoundation.com. Don't forget our fall conference is coming up. Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th. In Collierville, Tennessee. Very nice, safe community, about 30 minutes outside of Memphis. Easy airport to get in and out of. Easy to drive, very centrally located in the U.S. That's why FedEx is here. One reason. So consider joining us for our fall conference, Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th. Full details and or to register at worldviewstore.com. Don't forget about our banquet concert and keynote address by Hadiyah on Thursday night. That's optional. All of it, worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. Roll the music. Let's call it a night. Hey, while you're there at Worldview Store, pick up a bunch of our free business cards. A lot of our free business cards, and pass them out to your family and friends. Pray for us and promote us. Maybe you can't give financially, but you can pray for us and you can promote us. So please consider doing that. Get a stack of free business cards at worldviewstore.com. All right, that's our broadcast for tonight, Wednesday night, June 4th, 2025. Thanks for watching. May God save America. Take care.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon Howse.
All right, welcome. Glad you're with us on this, what is it? June 4th, 2025, June 4th, 2025. And we're getting word that President Trump has just hung up from like a 70-minute phone conversation with Putin. But there are going to be reprisals for what Ukraine has done. So buckle up, buckle in. It seems as though, folks, we are going to World War III. I've been talking to Colonel Rob Maness today on the phone, talking with Leo Holman, talking with different folks as we plan our news for the day and our broadcasts. And pretty much all of us agree we're headed for war. The question isn't, are we headed for war? It's when will it happen? And here's the bigger question for Americans. How are they preparing? Are they preparing? Because China, they're preparing their citizens for war. Russia, they have and are preparing their citizens for war. In fact, they have fallout shelters for a huge percentage of their population. How about us here in America? Most Americans, they're not preparing. And you know this by the fact, well, how few Americans actually are getting the truth about how close we are to World War III. It's not something you see talked about in the mainstream media with great context. You see, most people think a war will happen over there. And World War I, World War II, that's pretty much what happened. They were over there. Right? There were even songs about that. Over there, right? Well, let me tell you something, folks. World War III, I think, will be fought here. And in many ways, it's already begun. Many people go to war for many different reasons. There is no singular reason for going to war. There are always multiple reasons, multiple motivations. And when it happens, there'll be those who want it to happen right here on the lower 48. They've gone from burning the American flag and the Israeli flag to actually burning Americans and Jews. Now it's come out that the protester that did that, well, he was saying all kinds of crazy things. I have the article. Boulder firebombing Muslim terrorist declaration. Quote, jihad is more beloved to me than my mother, wife, and children. Allah is greater than the Zionists and America, end quote. These folks are here. The CCP, they're here. They have their military-age males. And the Marxists and the Islamists, the red-green axis, they are very intent that this next time there's a world war, it's going to happen on the lower 48. Gordon Chang will be one of our keynote speakers this fall, October 3rd and 4th, outside of Memphis in Collierville, Tennessee, where we are based. He's been saying just the CCP alone, they're going to poison our water. They're going to detonate bombs. There's going to be war right here on the lower 48. That's just the CCP he's talking about. Then add in the Islamists. Add in the anarchists. Add in the communists, the Marxists. Add in all of the brainwashed college students. What did Alan Dershowitz say on my broadcast a few months ago? And I said to him 2 weeks ago when he was on about the murder of the two Jewish students, or young people that worked at the Israeli embassy in D.C. I said, remember, Mr. Dershowitz, you said that we would see young people radicalized on America's campuses becoming terrorists. He said, yes, because that's what happened in the 1960s with the Weather Underground. But this audience, they're the best. They're the brightest. They're the most informed. Outside of you, there's very few Americans that know what I'm talking about. I actually said to my guys today, I said, go to the warehouse. Go to the warehouse, which it's a warehouse I haven't been. When do you think I last went to that warehouse, guys? I bet you it's been a year since I've been to that warehouse. Wouldn't you say, Caleb? It's been at least a year since I was there. It's not that far away. I just don't have time to go there. I don't have time to do much, to be honest with you. I really don't, other than be on TV 4 hours a day and then all the reading and show prep and everything that goes with that, plus studying Saturday and Sunday for my church service Sunday night. I'm not complaining. I'm not a victim. I'm not